Let's forego the countdown and just jump right in. Hey everybody, Steve here, the retired hobby tech guy. Today is going to be very interesting because we're going to be talking about Matt Walsh. Missed the point entirely, treating your spouse with respect. Apparently, no, we don't do that anymore. For those of you who don't know, this is kind of off the beaten path of what I normally do. I don't get involved. Well, I get involved in political talk, but usually not on my channel. Well, sometimes I do. There is. Sometimes I do. But with that, recently as I was enjoying my morning latte, which is actually a hazelnut blend with a dark bean roast with earthy aroma and flavor, a little bit of a chocolatey kind of vibe or essence to it, which is really nice. So double shot, of course. Froth the milk and everything, and we're good to go. But with that, Matt Walsh missed the point entirely, and I just want to kind of go over some information. How are you supposed to treat your spouse? Do we treat people with respect anymore? And with the advent of social media, has that respect or courtesy that we give others, especially ones that we're intimate with, has that kind of lost its way in America today, in the world? Yeah, obviously so. But I'm very surprised that Matt Walsh took the stance that he did, and I was so disheartened. I was like, as an independent, I watched it, and I was like, oh, Matt, no, don't. Oh, and I couldn't believe what I heard, and so I had to watch it 2 and 3 times just to... I couldn't believe to the conclusion that he said. And there's a couple of options. Either he really believes what he said, or it's clickbait to just kind of get comments and reaction videos like this. And if that's the case, then congratulations, Matt, you did that. But I think there's a larger thing at play here. A more important point is the fact that your Daily Wire and you being on there and putting out information and things and shaping how people mold and think and so on and so forth. People think that he is a role model to emulate and in this modern world and so on and so forth. And regardless of his political stance, generally I thought he was a pretty good guy, but then I saw this and I was like, whoa, this isn't good. Oh, seriously, Matt, really? I swear, I hope this is just for clickbait, but it's a short reel, so maybe I'm hoping it is, but we're just going to take it at face value for what it is. It is what it is, and going to assume that what he says is what he believes and thinks, and yeah, you're going to be really surprised, I think. So let's go ahead and we'll take a look here. Yeah, Matt Walsh there, boom. Missed the point entirely, treating his spouse with respect. And so let's just take a gander and see what this little reel is about. Now pay attention. We'll play this through once, and then we'll go through, and I'll play it again and stop it and say, yeah, this, what I think is wrong.
Here's Jenny's tragic tale of her husband being slightly dismissive once during dinner.
My husband decided to be spontaneous and take me to the movies last night. And when we went to dinner afterwards, I was talking about how much I really loved the movie. It was so good. I was so excited to talk about it. And he looks at me dead in my face and says, it was just a movie. And I immediately stopped talking. So the more I sat there and thought about it, I start crying. It gets really uncomfortable. And he tries to break the silence by continuing to talk. And I finally looked at him and I said, that really hurt my feelings. And he responded, it was just a movie. I said, I was really excited to talk about it. You took me to see this movie on a whim. I've never heard of it, didn't look it up beforehand, and I really loved it. You picked a great movie. And I was so excited. And now I don't want to talk at all. Because why would I want to talk after that? And he immediately stops. He's like, you're right, I'm sorry. And then he grabs my hands. He's like, I'm not even being sarcastic. You're right, I'm sorry. I love when you get excited. It's just annoying sometimes. I recognize that he is trying and he is learning how to communicate with me. It's not an overnight process, but it is very painful. He's still new to his healing journey, so I just have to keep remembering that.
The therapeutic industry has been a disaster. It's not a crisis. We don't have to sit around dissecting it. We really don't. Crying because he didn't want to talk about a movie. What the hell is wrong with you, you child?
Yeah. Like I said, this is real. It's a minute and 29 seconds. But for Matt Walsh to come away and let's just start and rewatch this, and I'll stop you when I see some very problematic areas. So
here's Jenny's tragic tale of her husband being slightly dismissive once during dinner.
Okay, he makes this claim that the husband was dismissive once after dinner. This, which is absolutely not true. It wasn't once, because anybody that's been married for any amount of time, you know that this isn't a one-time thing. For somebody to come up and actually do this to their spouse and come to the conclusions that the husband, and the things that he said were very hurtful to his wife, that's not just a one-time thing. And this does not even take into consideration all of the times that the husband thought about this over and over and over and over until he finally got to the point on date night. It wasn't just like a regular dinner. Husband comes home from work. Hey, here's dinner, and some. You want some fish sticks for dinner? Yeah. Oh, we watched a movie. No, it wasn't a normal It wasn't a normal dinner. It was a romantic dinner. The husband took her out. Obviously, he scored big points on the movie, but he lost those points and got penalties for stomping on his wife's heart and her feelings. A little bit of background about me. I have been married coming up on 35 years, together probably 36, and it only seems like 10. Now, we've had our ups and downs, and there is difference in communication between men and women, and I've been through counseling. I've read a lot of counseling books and so on and so forth. In the relationship that you have with your spouse, this is not something that is dismissive. It shouldn't be dismissed, and yet Matt Walsh goes to the point of say, "Oh, you're a child," and it's like, but if the roles were reversed, he would be ragging on the other shoe. Okay, so let's get back to and continue on.
My husband decided to be spontaneous and take me to the movies.
Okay, spontaneous is good. A lot of women, they come to the point, it's like where men aren't spontaneous, we're object driven and we do what we do, and it's hard to be spontaneous. So kudos to the husband for doing that. More people should do that, and especially on date night and making the wife feel special. And obviously he went to the pains to find a movie that he thought that she would like. And yeah, that is absolutely good.
Last night, and when we went to dinner afterwards, I was talking about how much I really loved the movie. It was so good. I was so excited to talk about it, and he looks at me dead in my face and says, "It was just a movie."
This is amazing, because when you get to this point, and then Matt Walsh and his worldview of the dynamics of a husband and wife, an intimate relationship, thinks that, oh, she's a child because the husband just didn't like the movie and it's just a movie. Well, as if there are things that the husband likes that the wife thinks is, oh, it's just NASCAR, it's just sports. Why are you so excited? See, if the shoe was on the other foot, then suddenly Matt would probably be saying, well, why did she emasculate him? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. You see where I'm going with this? What's good for the goose is good for the gander, but since it's not, according to Matt Walsh, and he assumed and made the assumption that this was just, and tried to imply that this was just a normal dinner and it was just a movie. And she wanted to share how she appreciated the husband taking the time to find a movie. That would pump me up as a husband. That would be, hey, you did something right. How many times do we have relationships with people and we see this stuff where it's like one spouse does not encourage, support, or congratulate the other? We see it all the time. So the fact that the husband did this and then she congratulated him, I would be like a pig in shit. I would be like, you bet, yeah, yeah, you're welcome. Let the wife go on and talk about how she loved the movie and what parts did you like about the movie. Here's the thing. After being married for 35, years and being together longer after that, there are times where you let the wife share what she likes. And here's a clue. Not all husbands will like all that stuff. But that doesn't mean that you are dismissive and say, it's just a movie, it's just this, it's just that, and stomp on your spouse's heart and her feelings. That is, I can't believe Matt Walsh said this, that he's so dismissive on this. Let's go back and continue this.
And I immediately stopped talking.
Immediately stop talking. So when you're in a relationship and somebody hurts you, it's like touching a hot stove. You touch the hot stove once and you're like, ooh, that hurts. I'm not going to touch that hot stove again. And if it happens over and over, eventually it's like, I'm not going to go near the stove. And then that is what we see in the dynamic of this relationship. She got burned and she didn't want to get hurt again. What are the odds? Nobody likes that type of pain. So again, Matt, if you flip the script in the situation and it ends up that the wife was dismissive to the husband and what he liked and got excited about, and she's a terrible wife. She should be more supportive and be, support her husband and, be excited about the things that he likes, to make him feel, appreciated. But in this case, we don't. Really, Matt? Really? That's where we're going?
When I sat there and thought about it, I start crying. It gets really uncomfortable. And he tries to break the silence by continuing to talk. And I finally looked at him and I said, that really hurt my feelings.
This is probably one of the things that couples have a huge problem with. Just to be able to identify and say, hey, what you said hurt me, to your significant other, and have a conversation so that way the other person knows what's going on and can say, hey, even though it might be innocuous, even though it might be, whatever it is, we don't think that it's a big deal, doesn't mean that it's not a big deal to the other spouse. Clue, get one, Matt. You need to get one. And if you are so dismissive about this, and the fact that he was basically like, movie, dinner, shut up, it was just a movie, who cares, you're and then it gets worse from there. The fact that Matt made the conclusions that he did and saying that, she's a child and whatever, actually, to me, this shows that she is mature and can approach her spouse and say, hey, even though that this was, you dismiss this, and even though you think it's just a movie, I was really excited about it, and then you stomped on my feelings and my excitement about it. We need to work on our dynamic. We need to work on these things because, it's either going to go one of two ways. Either she's going to distance herself from him even more and the relationship will be strained, or they'll come to a place where they will act like mature adults, take into consideration each other's feelings, even though he might not think it's important at all. The fact that he does take that to heart and apologizes and says, hey, you're right, I apologize for that, that will bring that relationship closer. And I can tell you, after 35 years, those are the things that strengthen your marriage. But by saying that you dismiss this and you call her a child, how would that run in this situation? Would calling her a child like Matt did help or hurt the situation even more? And again, if we turn this around the other way, what would Matt say about that? Matt missed the mark on this.
And he responded, it was just a movie. I said, I was really excited to talk about it. You took me to see this movie on a whim. I've never heard of it, didn't look it up beforehand, and I really loved it. You picked a great movie, and I was so excited, and now I don't want to talk at all.
Imagine that. You get burned, you don't want to touch the stove again. Wow.
Because why would I want to talk after that?
Why would you? When somebody stomps on your feelings, whether you're a man or a woman, it doesn't really matter. You don't want to talk to that person anymore, to the person that hurt you. And especially for somebody who is your significant other, your spouse, to whom you're going to spend the rest of your life until death do you part, through richer or poor, better or worse, the husband is making it worse by doing this. And with Matt saying that, yes, she is a child for having these feelings and making this a thing and crying about it, shows how far Matt has missed the mark. I mean, he's not even on the reservation. He's not even in the ballpark. He's not even in the parking lot. He hasn't even pulled out of his driveway.
And he immediately stops. He's like, "You're right, I'm sorry." And then he grabs my hands. He's like, "I'm not even being sarcastic. You're right, I'm sorry. I love when you get excited. It's just a..."
Husband did good. He immediately recognized, and he is mature enough to realize that, hey, oops, I stepped on my crank and I need to apologize. But then he goes back and is an idiot. And as somebody who is a husband, I have done many, many idiotic things. But because we have communication between my wife and we take into consideration each other's feelings, we make these, I don't want to say compromises, but we realize that what one person values might be different from another person's when what they value, but that does not invalidate the person. And we need to be careful of that. What about Matt claims to be a Christian, and what does the Bible say? Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. I know some of you might not be religious, but that's kind of a Bible thing, and it sounds like good advice. Husbands, love your wives. What are the odds? How do you love your wife? Are you dismissive? Or do you step on their feelings at chances like this and just don't care about what she thinks and what she likes and what she gets excited about? And she's obviously excited because it's not just about the movie. It's about the whole thing. It's about them being together. And I would say that she's excited after 35 years of marriage and dating and courting and all that stuff, is that she is excited that the husband took the time to plan this special romantic night, not just a dinner. And the whole thing, that because it drew and it seemed like they were closer together. That is what the wife appreciated, because he took her needs and her wants and her desires and the things that she likes, the romantic dinner, the movie, whatever, and that it shows that he cares. But when he came up and said, "Hey, this isn't, it's just a movie. What the hell are you talking about? Get out of here. Go get me a sandwich." That's not conducive to a good, healthy, long-lasting relationship. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. And then the husband says, "It's just so annoying at times." That is the biggest burn that I have heard. And unfortunately, I've done stupid things like that. And it's, when I was young and stupid, nobody teaches you how to be married. But through the years and the decades that I have been married, I've read marriage counseling books, relationship books, and so on and so forth, to realize, hey, you need to take the other person's feelings into consideration and not stomp on them. Jesus, Matt, you're an idiot.
Annoying sometimes. I recognize that he is trying and he is learning how to communicate with me. It's not an overnight process.
This is absolutely true. And actually, Jenny here is showing great maturity, because not only is she dealing with this in the way that she is, albeit she's throwing it out onto social media for people to watch, and unfortunately Matt to stomp on her heart again and her feelings and just messed with the dynamic of she is trying to have a deeper and more intimate relationship and a successful relationship with her husband. It is a journey. And if you don't think that getting married and drawing closer together and learning how to value your spouse's wants, needs, excitements, so on and so forth, shows that he doesn't know that it is a journey, and that is very problematic. To make the statements that she got upset. Ooh, she's crying. What a child. Oh, therapeutic community, blah, 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 blah. Shows, I'm just amazed at the idiocracy of Matt Walsh right now. It has really got up my nose. Let's continue on.
but it is very painful. He's still new to his healing journey, so I just have to keep remembering that.
And that's absolutely true. When we talk about, the journey of being married, it is indeed a journey, because you have one person here, you have one person here, and we are, men and women are truly like Mars and Venus and apples and oranges or rocks or whatever. We two totally different things. We think differently, we act differently, but yet somehow across the crowded room, our eyes meet and we fall in love. And then there we start that journey, we get married, and then being together, we have to learn how to communicate. We have to learn how to respect the spouse and what they value and what they believe and what they think, and give support to that. Really what it comes down to, I would say, my wife would say, the biggest thing that she wished that couples, and I would say the same thing, that couples need, and that especially wives, is that the husband has got his wife's back. That he supports her no matter what. And that says volumes. When you, obviously Matt doesn't think this, apparently because of the conclusion that he came to all this, and the fact that he said, well, it was only dinner, when in fact it really wasn't, and he automatically starts off biased. There's nothing saying that this, and it was only once. No, it's not only once. And if you listen to her and take a look at her side of the story, that yes, it is indeed a journey. And if you've been married for a minute, you know that marriage is a journey, and you need to make concessions for what the other person values. If you don't, you're going to hurt that person, and there's going to be resentment. Resentment is not good for a long-term relationship, or a successful relationship for that matter. And for Matt to stomp on her with this, it just amazes me. I just don't get it. It just pisses me off.
The therapeutic industry has been a disaster.
It's not a crisis. It's not. We don't have to sit around dissecting it. We really don't. Crying because he didn't want to talk about a movie. What the hell is wrong with you, you child?
The more I watch this, the more disgusted I am. We don't need to dissect this. The thing is that the majority of people that get married don't have training in marriage. No, I haven't run into anybody. There are some religious organizations that will have pre-marriage counseling and courses that you could take to help you when, eventually you get married, or it's a requirement that before you get married, you need to go through this counseling to, help facilitate and dissect that men or women are different. And when you're in a relationship of being a husband and spouse until death do you part, these are the things that the wise people within the church have found and pass on to the newlyweds, so they don't make the same stupid mistakes as they did. That's the whole point. Whether you're agnostic, whether you're religious or whatever, the counseling and dissecting and seeing, the dissecting, that's stupid to do. Yeah, it's stupid to see the things and identify the things that hurt the wife's feelings, and then he's dismissive about it, and so she removes herself further and further away from him, and then he's wondering why they don't have a good relationship and why she doesn't reciprocate on other parts of their relationship. And instead of going down on their journey through the years and the decades that they grow closer and closer together, that they actually end up growing farther and farther apart. Why would we need to dissect this and to actually look at all the variables, identify those things, and see what the problem is, and then fix it so we don't do stupid? Why would we want to do that? Why would I want to be on my wife's side and support her and protect her heart? Men are supposed to protect the hearts of their wives, and from muggers and rapists and murderers, and somebody breaks into the house, it's the husband's job. And me being the husband that I would gladly, even though that I know that maybe my life would be in danger, that I would stand in the gap for my wife. And that is commended by Matt Walsh in the past. But suddenly, when we're talking about what the spouse feels and values, suddenly he dismisses it as bullshit and she's being childish. And this really pisses me off. This is just, I don't get this. I am amazed, and again, whatever politics you have, I don't care. I'm an independent, best ideas from both sides. But when Matt Walsh goes to this point, and this has to be clickbait. It better be clickbait, because if this is not clickbait, this is huge. This makes me wonder about his relationship. Squeaky clean Christian, blah, 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 blah. And if this is indeed his worldview and he dismisses his wife like he dismissed Jenny in the video that he showed and stomping on her and what she values, that makes me wonder about Matt Walsh's wife, and does he do the same thing? It's like, oh, they're just flowers. I don't know why you're so excited. Oh, there's such a child. I mean, if we flip the logic or flip the situation on the other side, and it ends up that the wife dismissed what the husband enjoyed, I don't know why you're talking about this. It's just sports. Your team won. Whoop-de-doo. Why do you think the husband might not want to reciprocate and might not want to engage in conversation, which again will split up the relationship over time? The more that she does that, the husband would indeed pull away, because why? It's hurtful. This dude is an idiot. I don't get it. I am just at a loss for words about what is going on here. And I've been totally missing all the comments. So let's catch up on some comments. Henry Parker says, it shows a lack of emotional intelligence. The crux is people don't even understand what that means. Exactly. Let's take a look at another one. Mark says, on the other side of the coin, he says, I don't see anything wrong with what Matt said. Fact is, she is posting this on social media about her husband. Shows that she is a child. I don't know about that, because these are obviously younger people and social media has become a thing and it's the norm. So, but with that being said, remove putting it on social media. Let's just go back 20, 30, 40 years where there was no social media and this happened, and in the context of a discussion with a group of men or so on and so forth, and somebody relayed this and he saw this or whatever, and Matt ends up saying, well, this is this and she's a child and blah, 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 that is really bad. I can't, I don't know. I think it is. The husband was mature enough to apologize, and she's making a fool of him on the internet. There's that aspect as well, especially for people like us that are older. We can see that as being a thing, and I do see that. He did apologize, which is what husbands should do when they do something wrong and they hurt their wife's feelings. But the problem is, then he turned right around. He's an Indian giver, because then he just immediately reneges and says, but you're just so annoying. As if there's no annoying things that husbands ever do. After being married 35 years, there's things that annoy my wife, there's things that annoy me, vice versa, the whole 9 yards. But the thing is that if I bring those things up and put voice to them, that means that I've been thinking about them for quite a long time, and it is bugging me. And the fact that that the husband can't get over that, or a person can't get over that, and then you actually bring it to your lips and verbalize that shows that is a heart condition that you've been dealing with, and that is creating a lot of resentment. And there is, even though he didn't say it, even though let's just assume that Matt is right, this was just dinner and this only happened once, which we have no way of saying if this is actually true, but I've done counseling, I worked in prisons and counseled people and so on and so forth. It's just, I don't think that's the truth, but let's just assume it is. It still does not do away with the fact that Matt shouldn't. Seriously? Really? And if Matt was so concerned about it, did he reach out her personally and say, hey, blah, 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 and tried to help her out? No. But again, if you flip the script and put it the other way around, he would be saying that, she emasculated him. How dare her? It ends up, he said, she is annoying, sounds like she has more issues that we don't know about. Or that's a possibility, as if nobody has issues. The husband is blameless and squeaky clean, which I know is not the truth. Oh. But I kind of disagree with that for the fact that she talks about this. She's the one that's mature enough that says, hey, we need to identify these things. Hey, this really hurt me. She was mature enough to say, after this happened and after he stomped on her heart, that she ends up saying, hey, hold on a second, process the information. Yeah, women are emotional at times. Men get angry and violent at times, and there's things like that. But it ends up that she took some time, but she was mature enough to stop and say, hey, instead of letting this grow and let the resentment against him get worse over time by not addressing this shows that she has some great maturity. Whether she puts it onto social media or not, let's just leave that aside. Let's just leave it at the situation that it is. Like if somebody came and was getting counseling, which counselors would say, if something happens like this, don't attack your spouse out of an emotional outburst and then hurt them and so on and so forth. Rather, bring this up. Let's talk about this like mature people and say, hey, even though this might seem innocuous to you, it hurt my feelings. And the husband, the spouse, should support his wife and love his wife according to the Bible, that he should recognize that, and that even though he doesn't care about the movie, not one iota, maybe he sat there and he's just like, oh, I will never watch this movie again. The fact that it brought joy to her heart should be enough for him to go through that and have that period of enjoyment, that time of enjoyment. But the fact that she brought it up and didn't allow time to pass so resentment would build up in their relationship shows that she is pretty mature. So saying that she has issues, actually, by going through counseling and doing counseling, I would say that is not the case, in my opinion, but I could be wrong. I'll bet Matt knows that they are both wrong, but Matt is just responding to the one dumb enough to post it online. That could be true. That could be absolutely true. It could be the point of where, in our generation, people, I'm going to be 59 here pretty soon, you didn't air your dirty laundry because there was no social media, but you didn't air it. But think about it. We did air our dirty laundry back then, and parents and grandparents, because they went to social clubs, they had bridge night and, women's book clubs and all of those things. And, and there was still social interaction. And to say that people didn't bring about and talk about things like this 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago is non sequitur, because they did. They just did it in person, and they did it in groups, and it just wasn't as large as the internet. So really, are we just concerned about the scale? What is the scale? How many people can we tell? Maybe 5 or 10 people in the bridge club or in the crafting club that we belong to, that grandma used to do, and the quilting and knitting, and then all the women would talk and then Joe did this, and then he said he didn't care, and then all the while, it's this. The Bible has this great quote from Solomon, and I don't want to get religious on anybody. But the quote is, there's nothing new under the sun. Communication is communication. Whether you communicate amongst 5 people sitting together in a cafe or a home versus putting that information to others on the internet is just a scale thing, but there's nothing new. It's the same stuff. But how we deal with those situations and respond to those things aside, let's just leave the social media aside. If this was back 50, 75 years ago and it was put out into a group of men or women or whatever it was and talking about this, it would still be going out to an audience. And Matt Walsh would still be saying the same thing. Let's see. And here is Henry says, Why would you put a downer on something your partner is excited about? Even if you know that she's just doing it to show you, go back up there, doing it to show you how much she appreciates the effort you put into organizing such a nice date night. Exactly. And again, if the shoe was on the other foot, how would Matt feel about this? I've seen him where he sticks up for husbands where their feelings are hurt and that the wife shouldn't do that. Mark says, can we get Mrs. Wilson's opinion on this? I gave you Mrs. Wilson's opinion on this, in that you need to back most wives want their husbands to stand by and support them, have their back regardless of what happens, because that shows that you care. And something like this, I can guarantee you 1,000% that my wife would agree with everything that I've said on this, because over the decades that we've been married and we've grown closer together, we have addressed issues similar to this, not to the point where I did extremely stupid, but I've done some stupid stuff. But we've learned through counseling and so on and so forth, and just learning how to communicate. It's this whole thing of saying, oh, the therapeutic community. The thing is that people don't know how to communicate because we haven't been educated on how to do that. We've lost that. The older generations used to pass that on to the young people, but we don't do that now. So now, in the void of instruction, that's why we have the therapeutic community, basically. But my wife would 1,000% guarantee that she believes the same way I see this. This is how we see it together. Again, and if you flipped it on the other side, that would be wrong as a day is long as well. Now, it's good, it's absolutely good that the husband apologized and he showed that he responded without emotional outbursts and so on and so forth. So there is some maturity in the husband as well. But then he's kind of like an Indian giver in the fact that he gave the apology. He, hey, I'm sorry, I love you, blah, blah, blah. And then he kind of just, she is, she's a little bit hesitant, and then she starts opening up her heart again. And then he's like, boom, but you're so annoying when you get excited. And again, that's something that even if it's a first time, which Jenny never says that this is, it says that it's a journey and it's hard at times. Remember what she said, details are important. So Matt doesn't even realize that she said that this is hard at times, so this is not a one-time event. But the fact that they are on the journey and he is learning, and he did apologize, he didn't blow the situation out of proportion with his apology. He recognized and he valued his wife and that he hurt her. But then he just did monumentally stupid by saying that she's annoying, as if men are not annoying to their wives at times. They are, guarantee you. My wife would guarantee you, and I would double down and guarantee you that there's things that I do that annoy my wife. But the thing is, we allow that. We understand that, hey, yeah, he might be annoying with this, and he does this, and that's annoying. But in the grand scheme of things, she's got to let that go or let that pass because she has my back. And then I reciprocate that, and there's things that she does that are annoying. But you know what? In the big picture, I can learn to not be annoyed by those things, because our purpose is not the annoying little details or the little frustrations and things like that. The goal is to have a happy and successful relationship, that we've got each other's back. I care for her. I value her in the things that she cares about. She does the same thing for me. And even if she doesn't enjoy my 3D printing, even if she doesn't enjoy the guns and the ammo and all the stuff that I like doing, she still enjoys that when we go out in a situation and where perhaps the wife ends up saying, back in Colorado, and makes a lunch and all the little picnic lunch, and hey, let's go out to the range, and I made lunch, and you can shoot to your heart's content and all this stuff. And she's there, and she's like congratulating me on, because my wife doesn't like shooting. She does. She can shoot, but that's not really her thing. But she enjoys the excitement and being able to bring that to the table and share that, and that she supports me instead of me just being by myself and like, whatever. I enjoy that as well. But the fact that she took the time to make the picnic lunch and do all that stuff and go out there, and share in that thing, even though she didn't like it, even though she might think that it's annoying, that shows, and those actions shows that she cares for me, and the things that I value, she supports. She might not enjoy them, but she supports me in what I do, and that makes me more complete. That makes me less fearful. That makes me the ability to be able to come and have a conversation with her, and my heart is more open. I don't know. Maybe it's just the 35 years of marriage that does that. It seems so passive aggressive. It is almost like he organized date night reluctantly. If it bothered him because actually she asked, crap, come on, seriously, I only got it set for like 10 seconds. As if it bothered him because it actually something she asked him to do for the sake of their marriage. I don't know if it's passive aggressive, because she said that he planned it and took her out, and it was spontaneous. If a husband, I don't know, as a man, and being in the military and counseling soldiers and all of the marriage problems that they've had, good Lord, it's that was a big help for me in my relationship, is not only learning about relationships and how those dynamics functions within a relationship. I've been able to counsel soldiers and so on and so forth, and later on, and the things I did in prison ministry, the relationships and all that stuff. I don't know if it's passive aggressive. I don't know. Maybe it's possible. Maybe he just did it to check the box. But the fact that he apologized, I don't know, that he didn't react in an emotional outburst, it's hard to tell, honestly. It's hard to tell. Actually, something she asked him to do for the sake of the relationship. I would say that there are things that wives ask their husbands that, hey, I'd really like to go out, take me to a coffee shop and have a nice brunch and so on and so forth. That there. But then there's things that the husband would want to do, drag the wife to the NASCAR or the drag show, not the drag show with trannies, but, dragster shows, things like that. So I don't know. Henry pops up and says the passive aggressiveness relates to his movie comment. Yes, that fits. That could be passive aggressive. I can see that. I see your point. Yeah. Wow. But there's so much to unpack here. The thing is that I see glimmers of hope in Jenny and her husband's relationship, because she was able to stop, take some time, breathe, and then bring it up without exploding on him. And I can only take her at face value, so we'll just leave it at that. And then the fact that the husband ended up, again, we only get one side of the story, but give it some modicum of trust in her talking about this thing. The husband ends up apologizing, which is good. So that shows that they have been working on this. And I can tell you, by counseling thousands of soldiers and then prison ministry for a number of years and counseling people, this shows that they are actively working on it. So I don't know if it would be passive aggressive, but it definitely shows that he needs to grow up and mature. And because I see things in his relationship and the way he responded just in this short little clip of hers, that there's a lot of things that he needs to work on. But the thing is that it's because nobody has taught boys how to be men in these days. Even in my day, growing up, I wasn't taught how to have a good relationship. I was through my grandparents, but my parents, not so much. It was kind of it's definitely a lost art. She expects her husband to read, but she can't read her husband. To read her, but she can't read her husband. Maybe she can't read her husband. If she couldn't read her husband, I don't know. But the thing is, in a successful relationship, they should both be able to read each other. And I know after 35 years of marriage, there are things that I can pick up on because I can read my wife, where prior, being a newlywed, I had no clue whatsoever. And it is indeed a journey. There's things that I know. I can just be around my wife and she can be just around me. And if something is off, each one of us knows. And it's like, hey, what's going on? Are you all right? It just, something feels off. And she'll say that about me. I'll say that about her. And it ends up, it's like, then we get to the point of where either one of us or both of us are able to bring out and talk about these things. But the thing that keeps couples from doing that is when you have toxic relationships and you do things where you stomp on your spouse's feelings and dismiss what they value or what they're excited about. That closes the door to communication more often than not, in my experience. So, and the thing is that as a new, Mark ends up saying, and I need to bring this up, she expects her husband to read her, but she can't read her husband. That's kind of the thing. When you're newlyweds and you're young, many people don't know how to read their spouse. And the fact that women mature earlier than men do, maybe that comes into play. Women are more emotionally mature than men the same age. There are studies on that have been done ad nauseum. So, maybe that's part of the problem, is that he hasn't really come to a place, nor was he taught how to read his spouse. Henry ends up saying, yeah, she seems generous. There are so many stories where people change their honeymoon phase. Some start feeling trapped and subconsciously sabotage a marriage. Yeah, oh yeah. And that is definitely a thing. But it needs to be a two-way street. And I think you would agree, you need to have your spouse's back and they need to have yours. And you need to be working towards some common goals. And if you don't even address the elephant in the room of the lack of goals within a relationship, you'll end up doing stupid stuff and you'll be dismissive and you'll be it's just not good. You'll drift away in your relationship if you don't have common goals. And that includes the goal of communication and valuing each other. How do you value each other? And how do you express that to your spouse? Henry pops up and says, he seems checked out. I can't wrap my head around why I would squash my partner's excitement unless I'm actually feeling some type of resentment. That I agree. That's kind of what I feel, is that, excuse me, that there is this resentment. And the fact that she says that this has been going on for a while, that they've had hard times and they're on a journey, that indicates to me that it's been going on for a while and that she or he feels resentment against her, and then now he's vocalizing it. But it seems if she knows that they've had hard times in the past, that this isn't the first time that he's vocalized it. And again, words hurt. And especially with the people you love. I mean, you can tell me to F my mother and call me every name in the book. I mean, I was in the military, 12 years overseas, law enforcement, 11 years, firearms instructor, contract firearms instructor, upscale security. I guess you could say I was the man's man, as I put in my little comment on the side there, me and the wife. But it doesn't mean that I should be dismissive of what my wife feels exciting, There are times when you're going to have to compromise for the good of the relationship. The wife does that. The husband does that. There'll be times when you do both of you will do those things for your spouse because you love them. And that in the short term, it's like, oh, well, she's annoying or this is stupid. It's just a movie. Yeah, in the short term, in that moment of time, it might be that, yeah, it's just a movie. It's no big deal. That could be absolutely true. But within the larger context of a relationship that you're trying to build and expound upon and have greater intimacy on all levels of that relationship, yeah, this doesn't fit that narrative. And so it needs to be addressed. So, yeah. Yeah, maybe he is checked out. Yeah. Like Henry said, he seems checked out, can't wrap my head. Why would you squash your partner's excitement? With that being said, on the other side of the coin, there are things when you get to your relationship, there are points in time where you say, you know, the one spouse is this and super excited and the other spouse isn't. And then, to be honest, you should be open enough to say, hey, do you really like this? You know, is this, you know, and the spouse could end up saying, you know, honestly, no, it doesn't, kind of like with the firearms thing. I could go to a range and shoot 2 or 3 days in a row, you know, thousands and thousands of rounds of ammunition. That just, I love it. For my wife, not so much. She can shoot, but not as much as I do. So it gets to the point to realize that you need to know those things and the limits, but you don't squash on that person's excitement because you're squashing on something that brings them joy, and you should be supporting your spouse and increasing their joy, increasing their peace, and so on and so forth. So again, there's kind of a balance that needs to be had, and there needs to be communication. But yeah, the resentment will kill it. It will kill that because it will separate that relationship. And he says some people can't bring themselves to be the one to end things and start to act out. First by doing small things, later on becoming more cruel in hopes that the other side ends it for them. Yes, I have seen that. Hell, I've seen that in my own family. Not me and my wife, but my family growing up. And yeah. Self-destruction, yeah. There's people that I've known that are highly educated, that had multiple degrees, and one guy was working towards his master's, and it ends up that they did exactly that. They would do these small things that would annoy the other spouse, and to the point of saying things like, for example, just a movie, you know, letting that person spill their heart out and share the joy, and basically thanking you for taking them out on this, like, for example, Jenny, on this romantic movie dinner date, and then laying it all out, and then he just stomps on it. That creates that resentment, that creates that separation, and if you keep doing that over time, eventually she's not going to want to talk, he doesn't want to talk, and finally she's going to get fed up, and then she's going to leave, and that's what the husband wants. But the husband is playing the little bitch because he's not actually vocalizing this and being a man and standing up and saying, you know what, this relation is not doing it for me, let's split. No, he's being a child by doing that and letting that, you know, oh, let's just see how bad we can make this, you know, until finally she leaves because I'm too much of a coward to bring it up and leave myself. That is an antithesis of a good relationship. But the fact that Matt Walsh ended up saying that, you know, she's a child and blah, 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 and all this stuff, it's like, I am surprised, because if you just take the logic and switch the situation, same logic, and switch the situation around, what ends up happening is, I bet you $1 million he would have a different view on that. Where if the husband was excited, the wife took him out, and he was excited, and he was talking about it, and the wife said, it's just NASCAR, it's just the Final Four, it's just sports, what the hell, you know, blah, 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 blah. And he'd be like, ooh, damn, that hurt. Obviously, maybe the husband probably wouldn't cry, but it would still hurt his heart. And the fact that if the husband actually stood up and said, you know, that hurt me when you said that. Dismissing that as of recognizing and saying, hey, coming to terms that something that I did that my spouse values, that, yeah, let's not bring that up. Is that the mentality that Matt Walsh has with this? That's what it seems. But, you know, it's just, oh, man. Henry brings up a good point. If there are kids involved, a mortgage, or even a business, people can't even imagine how they can end a marriage. Yeah. It ends up becoming a pressure cooker. And instead of supporting your wife, instead of loving your wife, instead of laying down your life, again, going back to the Bible, I don't know if you're into the Bible or anything, But, laying down your life. What is love? Laying down your life for a friend. And your wife, your spouse, should be your friend. Your spouse should be your best friend. Just saying. Personally, that's my worldview of saying, you know what, you need to have your spouse's back, and they are your best friend that you can open up and say anything to, because there are people out there that don't care, but the one person that should have your back, regardless of right or wrong, and there's times where I've done stuff where I have been absolutely wrong, but yet my wife had my back. And through that support, even though I was wrong, showed me that she supports me regardless, 100%, even when I do stupid. That is huge maturity right there. And that was able to bring us even closer. And then when I saw just being able to know that, I was able to open up my heart more, because growing up in a severely toxic, dysfunctional family, we didn't do that. I was able to open up my heart more, and then I was able to reciprocate and be able to say, you know what, I've got your back. 100%. Even though she does something wrong, I've got her back, and she knows it. Doesn't matter what it is, I got your back. Yep, those people are stupid. This, whatever it is, I've got your back regardless. Why? Because I love her, because I care for her. Because the condition of her heart and how those things all interact and how we communicate and how we live together can either bring peace, joy, and support, or it can bring resentment and disillusionment. I just don't get it. I don't get why he said what he did. And again, he comes away with these things of saying, he comes up and he says, the tragic tale of her husband being slightly dismissive once during dinner. Slightly dismissive? The fact that he is downplaying this and claiming that it was only once, when she clearly says that there has been problems and pain in the past, obviously on the same front, shows that he is being dismissive and that he is minimizing this and claiming she's the child. I just don't dismissive, just being dismissive. Matt Walsh is a commentator of some sort, right? I haven't seen his stuff before. Seems quite annoyed. You seem quite annoyed that he said, why does it matter that some podcaster on the internet said something silly? That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. And with that said, at the end of the day, I don't really care what Matt Walsh says, because I'm solid in a relationship that I have with my spouse and me. But the fact that the outreach, not that Matt Walsh is going to see this and then come to Jesus and apologize and repent and, put an apology. No, I'm not expecting that at all. He won't. He will do what he does. And 99% of the time, when you try to correct somebody, 99.99% of the time, nobody's going to heed that correction. I know that. I know that through the military. I know that through all the stuff that I've done, working in prison ministry and so on and so forth, counseling. The majority of people, unless they are dedicated to the process or the goal that they have, they don't want to be corrected. So, yeah, why does it get up my nose? It does, but it doesn't. But I'm just surprised. And he's a pretty conservative person. I dare say he's a Republican. Again, I'm an independent, but it's like, whether the politics, that has nothing to do with it. But the fact that it deals with relationship, because it doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, independent, whatever, libertarian, whatever, we all have relationships. And to take this stance and saying that she is wrong and that the husband is basically blameless, and he made one dismissive comment when he really stomped in her heart. It's very problematic, because then what that ends up doing, people that watch this take this as saying, well, he's successful, he's this, his worldview, he's a Christian, this is how people need to treat their spouses in this type of situation. And so they kind of take this as being a role model. And so that bothers me. But again, although he's got a big following, I would imagine Jenny getting a lot of mean comments by now. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she is, but then again, I'd venture to say that her husband is probably getting a lot of mean comments because I actually went through counseling before I got married. I got counseling about marriage before I was even dating because I realized through the severe dysfunction that my family had and what I grew up in was so bad and so toxic. There was no redeeming qualities in it whatsoever that I needed to learn and not do the same things and end up the way my family did, my parents did. Multiple dads and in horrible dynamic, horrible dysfunction. So toxic, it's just, there's no hope. I realized at that point, my parents, my stepdads, the whole situation in the family, I realized that I didn't want that. And so I better get my collective shit together and learn how not to do that. And that was probably one of the better things that I did for my life is that even though I wasn't dating anybody, I went through this counseling and what is the dynamic of men? What is the dynamic of women? What does it mean to really be together as a husband and a wife? What do you look for? I mean, there's people in the military that I counseled, my soldiers got married, had no clue whatsoever that they had no idea that they were able to set goals as a couple. And that those goals would not only be financial, but mentally, emotionally, physically. Clueless people, blind leading the blind. Going back to another Bible thing, it's true. And I realized that because of the severe dysfunction that I experienced, that I needed to learn what was right and what was acceptable and what would actually enhance the peace and calm and the serenity of the relationship and to deepen the intimacy of that relationship, and to where now it's to the point of where I can bring anything up to my wife can bring anything up to me, and we don't react out of anger and frustration and emotional outbursts and things like that. We can talk as mature adults, but we do that, and we've gotten to the point of where we didn't step on everybody's heart. And so that allowed us to be open, and that allowed us to realize, hey, we need to step back, we need to step away from the emotions, both men and women, and to address this, but under the guise of protecting the spouse, each spouse's heart. And then that allowed more communication, which allowed for greater intimacy, which allowed for a closer relationship, which ends up, that just, solidifies that I have her back and she has mine. Let's see. Henry ends up saying, I don't want to turn this political either, but the new conservative understanding of wife has become more aggressively traditional, submissive and husband-oriented. Isn't the trad wife thing from that? The trad wife thing, if you look back at my great-grandparents or grandparents, or my parents are a bad example of that, so we won't even go into that. But aggressively traditional, I don't know. I think that's kind of gotten a bad thing, but if the wife knows her roles and the husband knows his roles, and those two people end up agreeing and they want to be together, that operating and supporting each other in those roles brings a deeper and better relationship, then I'm all for it. But does that mean that you have to be traditional to have a good relationship? No, it doesn't. There's people that, where the wife works and the husband stays at home, or both spouses work, and it's not traditional in any way, shape, or form, like Little House on the Prairie. The wife is churning the butter and whatever, and the husband's out plowing the field. It's not that. You can still have a successful relationship without being traditional. But I think the bigger problem is that in the younger generations, we haven't even taught them how to have a relationship, regardless if it's traditional or not. It's just, and there's a saying in Korean, the husband is the head of the house. He's the head. The wife is the neck that turns the head. Dwell on that, and that is so true. Now, ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, whatever the husband says is, that's the word. The husband said it. Let it be written. So let it be written. So let it be done. But a husband who is emotionally intelligent, who is smart, who has common sense, who has understanding, who cares for his wife and loves his wife, will listen to his wife as long as his wife is wise, understanding, gives good advice, and so on and so forth. And the reason that she can do that, and that goes vice versa for the husband as well. The husband can't be a dingleberry. But with that, the wife brings a perspective that the husband can't see, and vice versa. And so on that united front, they can bring those two perspectives together. And in that, along their journey of marriage, they can use that to grow even deeper and more intimate in their relationship. And then that just solidifies, I've got your back, you've got mine, blah, blah, blah. So even though the husband is the head of the house, the wife is the neck that can turn the head. But how does she turn the head? Even in an aggressive traditional relationship, the wife should be able to bring good counsel to her husband and vice versa. And again, if it's left in the void of just traditional, aggressive, traditional, trad wife, whatever, but there are no goals, you will have a bad relationship. Guaranteed. So it goes beyond just being trad. You need to know how to have a relationship with each other. You need to know how to value and love the person and what they value and love, and support them regardless. So everybody says, oh, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church, and love your wife until death do you part. But what does love mean? Let's define that. Most people don't even know what that is. They don't, and they can't even identify how you love your wife, and give instances of that, like in the situation of, well, how do you love your wife? Oh, don't stomp on her feelings and something that she really enjoyed that you don't, really care for. In other words, you are so emotionally detached from your spouse that you can't let her be excited about something? Really? Love is letting her feel that excitement. To me, if my wife did that, and I planned and did the exact same situation, and she was like, oh, that movie was awesome, and blah, 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 which, that's happened. I would feel proud, because I was able to bring joy and excitement to her life that she probably hasn't had in a while. And even if I didn't like the movie, say there was an actor in there or actress that I absolutely hated, because it brought joy to my heart, it's not about me. It's about my spouse. And it's about lifting her up and having her feel important, placing her needs above my own. I would dare say that is love. That is one example of love. And she does that for me as well. Henry says, I concede the point. Just because you have a traditional roles in your relationship doesn't mean the husband can stomp on her feelings and take her love for granted. Yeah, that's you have a way of consolidating all of this and putting it in nice worded statements that take me much longer to do. You are awesome, sir. But yeah, really it comes down to exactly, you nailed it. I got to put that up there again. Just because you have traditional roles doesn't mean your husband can stomp on her feelings and take her love for granted. And again, if we come to the point of where love is letting her experience that joy and excitement, and letting her rant on about, oh, this movie was awesome, and blah, 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 blah. The spouse, I shouldn't stomp on her feelings that she's feeling of enjoyment. Because really what that is doing is allowing her to be open. And when you slap that, she's not going to be open, and that's going to build resentment. But we're too focused on the small dot of this thing in time, and we're making a judgment call and saying, oh, it's just the husband was dismissive once and she's a child, and why are you crying? That is so blah, 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 blah. Really, Matt is just not taking into account the dynamic of a marriage relationship. And I am just appalled because he doesn't act, I've never seen him act like this before. Not that I'm a diehard Matt Walsh guy. I see his reels from time to time, and mostly it's, stuff like, okay, I get your point. Yeah, that makes sense, whatever. But on this, he totally missed the mark. He misread the entire situation, and he even starts off with a bias of saying that the husband was just dismissive once, but obviously it's not. And if you spend any time being married, if the husband says this once, that means that he's been thinking about it for quite a long time. It just took him a while to verbalize it. It's kind of like when a wife asks for a divorce. Well, she just brought it up once. Yeah, but she's been thinking about it for a long time. So again, it's important about what you think, because what you think is what you ruminate on in your relationship over time. And it doesn't matter if this is the first time. Obviously, he's been thinking about this for a while because he actually verbalized it. You're just so annoying. Ouch, that hurts. That would really hurt. That's a doozy there. So him saying, oh, the dismissive and she's a child or whatever. Yeah, Matt, you're an idiot on this one. That's all I got to say. So anyway, I'm just really surprised. Somebody who, supports traditional roles in marriage and is usually big on relationships, I totally think he missed the mark on that. So, yeah, it's just amazing on, there's a picture of me and wife there, she's you can see that, there we are. And we're total opposites, I mean, the things that we couldn't be more opposite, but the thing is, it works for us. And it gets to the point of where, the relationship that me and the wife had, not saying that we haven't had any problems. We've had a ton of problems, but because we had goals and because we saw that the long-term goal, that's what's important. And these little things, and that we need to make concessions for each other. That's what it comes down to. Look at her guns. Yeah, I know. She's rocking it. So she's like 5'2", $110. I'm 6'2" at 260. I like making videos, and I've been an instructor in the military and all this stuff, and law enforcement, guns, and the whole 9 yards. She's the opposite. I like scary movies. She doesn't. It's just funny how opposite we are. But despite that, we have got the closest relationship of anybody that we know. And I think it stems from the fact that we value the other person. We have that other person's back 100%. And even if we don't enjoy that thing with as much excitement and enthusiasm as they do, we realize that that's important to them, so I'm going to support them. So they can, I don't know, maybe it's like, they can realize who they are as a person or whatever it is. You get really psychologically deep in this, but, again, you're going to support your spouse, and you can either grow closer together or further away. Mark says, where do you shop for clothes in Korea at 6'2" and 260? The PX in the military, and even then that is problematic. I'm close to Camp Humphreys, which is the largest overseas U.S. military base in the world, with like 30,000 people on it, contractors, the whole 9 yards. They have a big PX, but I still have problems buying clothes because I'm lucky if I can find a 2X. I should be wearing 3X, but that is super rare to find. And so I try to order stuff off of Amazon because obviously Korean stores and malls don't have, a lot of them don't have my sizes at all. I would have to go to a specialty store for big and huge, and they do have those stores, but there's like none locally. So it just, yeah, Amazon and the PX and tank tops and shorts. It is rough. It is rough. Hell, even buying socks. I got size 12 feet. And even buying socks is hard because the socks that you buy, it says, size 6 to 12. On the high end of 12, they're really kind of pulling your toes in and it's just not comfortable. I need like the next size, like whatever it is to, 8 to 13 or 7 to whatever. It just, man. Henry ends up saying, he says, as long as both sides agree that the journey is worth taking together, you have to fight to make it work. That's absolutely true. I don't think it's very common for Korean couples to consider marriage therapy. Yeah, that's kind of a weird thing. And just like, in the United States, I think with the younger generation, they're more apt for therapy and counseling than the older generation. When, for example, in the military, you didn't talk about mental health. You just sucked it up and drank hard and played hard and you were dysfunctional. And if you mentioned mental health or going to a psychiatrist or seeing the chaplain, that was looked down upon as being weak. And even after I retired in 2005, there was still this stigma that you don't talk about these problems because it makes you less of a man. And so dealing with PTSD, depression, anxiety, and all of those things, that is really a hard hurdle for a lot of veterans and men to get over, or hell, even women. But since then, therapy has become more mainstream or more accessible and more people are doing it. So that's a good thing, at least in the United States. In Korea, marriage counseling? Yeah, there's a lot of marriage counselors around here that advertise, but they seem to be geared towards the military population. So as far as marriage counseling for Koreans as a whole, I don't really know. I'd have to ask my wife about that. And I don't think she would know because we're kind of new back here to Korea anyway. So I would imagine, like way back in the day, yeah, it wasn't really a thing. There's more counselors now than there were before, but I don't think it's as mainstream as it is in the United States. So I'd say, yeah, probably, I don't think it's very common for Korean couples to consider counseling. Yeah. Mark says, I would recommend watching Mark's full videos and not the clips to get the full content. Yeah, the problem is I checked and there is no full video. This is it. That's all we have to work with. So, like I said in the beginning, is this just clickbait and he's making this very controversial statement that she's a child, he just dismissed her once and blah, 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 everything's all peachy keen, she's wrong for, maybe it was clickbait, but we don't know because that's the entirety. He doesn't talk about this and I can't find it. So if it is, I would really like to know. And hopefully I'm wrong in this because anybody, regardless of who you are, if you think this, I just can't subscribe to that. Henry says, yeah, in Korea and Japan, talking about your feeling is quite frowned upon. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And in marriage counseling, I'm wondering if that's a thing as well. I don't know. I'm definitely going to ask about that because that's very different. The full video is on his YouTube channel. Really? I will definitely look at that. I was looking for it. I didn't find anything. Posted 2 days ago. Okay. Alrighty. I will definitely look into that. So, but yeah, the whole thing on that, just to put out that type of stance to begin with, in that short little clip, and he himself in his videos before has brought about and said it ends up where is it, blah blah blah, where he has taken and said things and so on and so forth, it ends up where was I going with this? I'm trying to do like three things at once. It says, this TikTok wife destroyed her husband's reputation. In front of 30 million people. Okay. Again, that aside, in case you're wondering. So there it is. Boom. Talking about there. Woman just sent to prison for posting a mean tweet. That was the UK. No, is it this one? Yeah, it's this one here. So we have another super violent entry in the ever-expanding genre, blah, of wives complain about their husbands. Yeah, and here's the thing. I just find it problematic that, we say, ooh, it's bad that, they're putting this out to people, for the world to see, but yet it's just on the scale. Back in my grandparents' day, they would talk about problems, and it ends up that it would be with a smaller group of people in the men's group or whatever, going hunting or the bowling, the bowling night that the guys would go out, and then they would talk about all these same things, and the women would do their things. So, really, but the problem that, she brought this out in my generation, I wouldn't post this on social media, and because I don't, I think you could talk about it, but to post it like she did, but then again, maybe she's doing it under the guise of, hey, this isn't healthy or whatever, and then just gets all muddled from there. So, but no, I don't want to post a link on that. Mark asked about that. I'll just leave it up on there so that you can take a look. Let's take a look at this and see what happens.
So that's...
No, we don't want to listen to the commercials. But, yeah, but just the conclusions of saying, that...
It will almost always be in a funny, lighthearted way where he makes himself the butt of the joke ultimately. But the all-female genre of spousal sessions is never meant to be funny. And the women certainly don't make themselves the butt of the joke. These videos are, in almost every case, bitter, petty, patronizing, and deeply insulting to the husbands. And this latest entry is no different. So here's a woman, Jenny Maharaj is her name, who decided to tearfully scold her husband in front of the world, in front of what turned out to actually be an incredibly large audience. This video has been viewed 2 million times on TikTok and another 30 million times on X. And as always, the comments are mostly full of women cheering her on and dogpiling her husband. There's wide agreement in the feminist peanut gallery that Jenny's husband is a bad person, a bad husband, a bad man, and she has no recourse but to divorce him. And this is exactly the kind of feedback that Jenny was looking for, obviously. There's no other reason to parade your spouse's shortcomings in front of the world. So here's Jenny's tragic tale of her husband being slightly dismissive once during dinner. Listen.
Here's the problem. I mean, should she brought that out to the world? That aside, because go back 50, 75 years ago, she would have brought it up to the women's group or the book reading club or whatever, their little group or whatever. Men would do the same thing within their groups. So apparently that's okay so it's just the scale that's wrong. Again, let's just leave that aside and just talking about the relationship thing. And again, he doubles down here and says, he was slightly dismissive once, but in all the years of being married and counseling and stuff like that, and she, even by her own words, she said that this has been a problem before. So it's not just once, and it's slightly dismissive. Really, something that your wife enjoyed and she's excited about it and bubbling and going on about it, and then you stop on it, that is slightly dismissive? Really? Are we really going to say that is slightly dismissive? Again, if you put, regardless of whether it put it out on social media, well, let's not deal with that. Just the situation in itself, it's not slightly dismissive. That is very hurtful and it's very cruel in my opinion. No, that's not okay either. It's the same issue, social media, women's group 60 years ago. Yeah, that's what I feel. Personally, would I do that? Absolutely not. But I would talk about situations I can share on my life and growing up and with the spouse and all that stuff to help further and let people know that, hey, this is conducive to a good intimate relationship. These things are not. Men, you need to get a clue and don't do these stupid things like I did. I can totally get behind that. And then on the same aspect, from a woman's point of view, can she bring up things and say, hey, this is what you should or shouldn't do? Yeah. But unfortunately, in a world of social media, people will take this and it'll ruin people's careers and so on and so forth. Henry says, sharing your life on social media, good or bad, is much more common these days. Yeah, it is what it is. So, but for him to say and make the claim that he just did it once and it was slightly dismissive shows that he is missing the mark on so many levels.
My husband decided to be spontaneous and take me to the movies last night. And when we went...
More ominous.
Okay.
Going into an office.
Blah, 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 blah. So he does a little cut there.
Or more glaring than a woman who uses... Of all the red flags that have ever been flown, there is perhaps none more ominous or more glaring than a woman who uses the phrase healing journey. And
you know, it's interesting because that can be a two-edged sword. It can either be good and bad. Being on a healing journey, I think that's an amoral comment. I think it depends on who it comes from and the context of what you're talking about. Marriage is a journey. I guarantee you it's a journey. You're going from point A to point B, and till death do you part. So hence, all of the things that you learn between the beginning and the end of the marriage and the experiences and how you relate with each other, it is indeed a journey. There's things that you're going to learn. It's funny how people would say, you know what, there is... through the journey of life, in work, I learned this and whatever, you can show the milestones and the things that you've done through your journey in your work over time to become, you started out on the bottom end of the totem pole, you finally got up to the top and it was a journey, you learned so many things and so on and so forth, become a more responsible and, respectable employee or business owner eventually, whatever it is. We laud people with great kudos of, oh, this is so awesome. But when we get down to marriage, suddenly the journey of marriage is kind of like, oh, that's a big red flag. Not always. Again, context is important.
this is exactly the kind of therapeutic jargon that you so often hear from the worst kinds of people. It's always the worst, most selfish, most oblivious, least self-aware people who speak in a way that make it obvious that they've spent many years in talk therapy, which should tell you all you need to know about talk therapy, but that's a topic for another time. For now, there is perhaps none more ominous or more glaring than a woman who uses the phrase healing journey.
Okay.
And this is exactly the kind of therapeutic jargon that you so often hear from the worst kinds of people. It's always the worst, most selfish, most oblivious, least self-aware people who speak in a way that make it obvious that they've spent many years in talk therapy.
So what he's saying is that if you spent many years in talk therapy, if you spend many years in therapy, which I have, apparently that's a huge red flag. Maybe people need lots of therapy because they've had a lot of bad things happen to them. Maybe they've had some huge toxic dysfunction that they grew up in. Maybe it's not as, butterflies, puppy dogs, and, lollipops their whole life. Maybe they've had to work through some shit. So, yeah, that just, really?
Which should tell you all you need to know about talk therapy, but that's a topic for another time. For now, you should know that as this video went super viral and thousands upon thousands of women applauded her and offered absolutely vicious indictments of her husband, Jenny kept posting videos about it.
And here's the thing, is what the husband did was wrong. Yes, what he did was wrong. stomping on her feelings and on her heart and not supporting her, not letting her enjoy the romantic night that he planned for her and stomping that into oblivion. I can see how women would side with her. I totally get it. But aside from it being on social media, the important thing is the relationship. It shows that she did have some maturity going on of being able to bring it up and say, hey, whoa, that hurt my feelings. He ended up, obviously, he's got some modicum of, respect, and he's got a lot to learn. And again, women are more emotionally intelligent and mature than men are at the same age. So, and I can guarantee you that. But to automatically take this and say, oh, it's terrible, blah, blah, blah. Either you're wrong or you're right. And in this case, the husband was wrong in what he did. Basically, he's an Indian giver. He stomped in her heart, and then she felt hurt because the husband is supposed to have her back and protect her, love and protect and, respect and all that stuff. But he didn't do that. So really, he smashed her. And then a modicum of hope comes in, a glimmer of hope comes in, and he apologizes, but then he pulls the rug out from under and says, but when you get excited, you're just so annoying. So there's two wrongs. Two wrongs don't make a right, and it doesn't negate the fact of what he did was wrong. Twice. Henry says, yeah, but some people seeking help for mental health is a weakness. Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, mental health. And that's a stigma that you can have on your own. And that's what I thought for the longest time, because that's a dynamic that I was raised in by my parents and grandparents. I wonder if he ever put a male TikToker on the spot who complained about his wife. Again, yes, exactly. Let's turn the tables. And has he ever called a man to the carpet? It's just.
Because once a woman like this realizes that she can get attention and validation on the internet by publicly spitting in her husband's face, she won't stop. It's a drug. And so in a follow-up video, Jenny informs us that her husband is self-loathing and not as emotionally mature as she is. And if she has to divorce him, she will, because she can make it without him. Watch.
This is interesting because it's kind of like stating the fact. And if indeed she does get divorced, and then maybe it's because of the massive resentment that is built up and the whole claim that he made that he was slightly dismissive one time really wasn't slightly dismissive, and it definitely wasn't one time, but it's to the point of where, like Henry ended up saying, that it's a pressure cooker and it's built up to the point of where she is at wit's end, and obviously he is too, and being self-loathing and doing these things despite hurting his wife, even though he knows it hurts her, because obviously she had brought it up to him before. Maybe it's got to the point of where this has exploded, and yeah, divorce is the only option because she doesn't want to get hurt anymore, and he doesn't want to concede and care about her feelings. He just stomps on her heart more, or he's unable to. But either way, he chooses to make those decisions. And obviously, if you continue to make those decisions, again, it's like somebody burning you with a hot coal. Ow! Shit! Stop that! Don't! Ow! Get. And you do that so many times, and eventually, a mature, smart, and educated person will say, "Hey, you need to stop that! Ow! What? God damn! That's it. I'm done." Which is something that a lot of people don't do. So the fact that she stood up for herself, aside from the social, he's claiming that all she wants is social media attention. Let's bring in another dynamic, and maybe this is just pressure cooked to the point of where she has gone to wit's end, and she has a goal for marriage and being closer and more intimate, and you've got my back, I've got yours. He has a different worldview, and he obviously does not ascribe to that. So he just keeps keeps hurting her. So eventually she will leave, and he plays the victim. Has that ever happened before? Yes, many times.
You are correct. There is hatred here, but it's not for me. It's for himself. He hates my joy and excitement because he has nothing to feel joyful or excited about. And
You know what? I've met guys like that. I have met guys who have had dysfunctional upbringings, had trauma within their lives, people that were in prison, extreme examples where it just failed and they made severely bad choices because of the exact same thing, because they did not have the support growing up, they didn't have the love, the validation, whatever it is, yada yada. They weren't raised right. Let's just leave it at that. And it ends up that they really do have self-hatred because they don't know how to feel. And so when somebody else feels good or excited or joyful or has peace, they can't handle it, so they attack that person because they can't feel those things themselves, because they don't want to change. Something to be said about that.
that's exactly what I said to him after he said it was sometimes annoying. The comments were not surprising. I actually almost didn't read them because I knew exactly how they were going to go. I started my healing journey in August of 2022. In the first year of my healing journey, I crashed out at least 2 to 3 times a month. And he was there to take the beating. Every single time. When you start healing and reconnecting with your higher self, your brain thinks it's in danger and it starts to project and deflect to whoever is closest to you. In my case, it was usually my husband, and now in his case, it is me. If I didn't...
This is exactly what I was talking about. People don't know how to speak. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know the social interaction that we learned a long time ago, way back in the day. You would have the social gatherings, the dances, the high school dance, junior high and high school dances, and then the men would teach their boys how to have respect for women. You would have these examples of how we were supposed to act and how we were supposed to do. And hey, how fathers would teach their sons how to be good men. Women would teach their daughters on how to be and how to interact with each other. But we don't do that anymore. And so, we get away with this place of where people don't know how to feel. They don't know how to act. And if somebody is feeling, and I totally get this because I have been that person that hated when other people were having a good time, where other people had peace, where other people had joy. That put me in attack mode because I could not do that. Why could I not do that? I could blame it on trauma, I could be victimhood, the whole 9 yards. But I had to come to terms and realize that I needed to work on myself so that I could do those things. But instead of working on myself, no, let's just strike out against the other people that are around me that love me. Yeah, that's being an ass in my opinion. In my context, in my experience, I was being an ass when I did those things. Arguably, the failure of a relationship can already start with a person choosing a very flawed partner because they believe they don't deserve better. That is a wise saying, and it's so true. If we don't know our value, and we think we deserve less or not as good as other people, we will pick that lesser person or that dysfunctional person, or we have grown up in such a dysfunctional family and way is we think that's the norm, but then we have all these problems and complications, but we still think that's the way it's supposed to be because that's the reality that we grew up in. That is our norm. It's normal for dad to go drinking and beat on everybody. It's normal for the wife to cry herself to sleep and for the parents to argue and so on and so forth. It's just the ups and downs of marriage. If that's how you grew up, that is the norm. And as a little kid, it's like, that's what everybody does. I grew up in that. And I remember, this is wild. You're going to get a kick out of this. I remember the first time I spent the night over at a friend's house. I must have been 7, 8 years old, I think it was. And it was a buddy from school. We had to sleep over at his house. And it ends up that I was blown away. We had family dinner at the dinner table. The husband, the wife, my friend, and me, we're sitting at the table. They said grace, and they kind of looked nice during dinner. The wife asked about the husband's day, and she asked, he asked about this and that. Then they asked about, well, what did you guys do today? And it's like, I had never seen that before, ever. I was dumbfounded. I was like, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm waiting for the husband to pop open a 6 and down that and get angry and start yelling and cursing and beating me and whatever before I went to bed, which was a common occurrence. That was my norm. So when it was like, hey, here it is, and you get to watch TV, and whatever the TV show that, my buddy was allowed to watch, we were able to watch that. I never did that in my house. My parents never let me do that. Lord forbid I change the channel to a kid's show. And then they ended up playing a card game with us. And I was like, I was so apprehensive. I was like, I was just kind of looking around, and we're playing some board game or whatever. Mom, Dad, my buddy, me, and it's like I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I'm like, oh shit, this is just start the beatings and let's get it over with. So I know there's some continuity, that I know the waiting was terrible. And so with that, kind of like what Henry was saying, is that if you have a bad relationship, yeah, you choose that flawed partner because that's all you know. And so the very first time, it's like, I remember it's like, okay, the whole night went without violence. The whole night went without yelling or alcohol or beatings or throwing things in the house. And if I was in my room, kind of reading the comic book, the Hulk and Spider-Man, blah, and then the parents are going at it, throwing shit at each other, yelling and screaming. None of that happened. And the parents were actively engaged in, hey, Johnny, Steve, what did you think? What did you do? What do you want to do when you grow up? I have no idea. I didn't know what to say because everything was so foreign to me. But maybe because that's how I grew up, that in some of the relationships that I had, those were extremely flawed partners as well. So Henry nailed it. I don't know. It just ends up, they see themselves as broken and romanticize the idea of picking somebody who is broken as them and go on a healing journey. But it usually comes to a complete mess. Yeah. And then the fact that if you can't fix yourself, you can't help fix another person. You can't be supportive of that other person because you're acting out in this dysfunctional dynamic that doesn't work. And if you can't work it for yourself, you can't support somebody else. And so take two severely dysfunctional people and throw them into a relationship that don't know how to have a relationship or know the roles or even agree on what the roles are for each other within that relationship. Yeah, it's going to be a total mess. Let's continue on.
Didn't feel like he was trying, I would not be here. I am secure in myself enough to know that I can make it on my own if I have to.
If the relationship is so toxic that it had to end and he didn't care, and we kind of get some glimpses into that of him saying, I'm sorry, but you're so annoying. It's just a movie. But he's not being slightly dismissive. That seems like he is really hating on her. And the reason that I can attest to that is because I would do the same things in that. Because if I didn't enjoy it and whatever, I would lash out at people, and be dismissive. And in that, it's not slightly dismissive. It's just really hurtful to people that you're supposed to be loving, that you committed your life to love until death do us part. Yeah. Let's see what Matt says about this. Aside from the fact that she threw it onto social media, let's just look at this as a relationship situation case.
I know it's a topic for another time, but this, I cannot stress enough what a disaster therapy and the whole therapeutic industry. And I don't know if this woman has been to therapy. I assume she probably has.
So he doesn't know. So he's making a claim that probably or whatever. And the fact that, she uses some buzzwords for counseling and journey and, stuff like that. Really, in communication, when we talk about you need to communicate thoughts and ideas to another person in the way that they'll understand it and really grasp and do that. Back in my day, in older generations, my parents, my grandparents, not my parents because they were just terrible, but my grandparents, they would not use a journey of healing. No, they just say your married life. But they understood that the marriage was a journey and that there's things that you had to do and make considerations for your spouse and love and support and so on and so forth. My grandparents were pretty well grounded. So being totally dismissive of this and then making this biased remark of saying, it's wrong, blah, red flag, whatever, but I'm assuming,
If she hasn't physically been, then I guarantee she's read all kinds of self-help books and watched videos and that sort of thing. It's all part of the same scam.
To make such a generalization that you read all these books or whatever, that it's all a scam, there are a ton of good books on relationships. Matter of fact, there's some stuff that I've seen from him before talking about authors and fostering good relationships and so on and so forth. So I find that disingenuous, but there's a lot of crap out there too. I'll concede that. I'll be the first one to let you know that there's a lot of crap out there. But all the books that I've read on relationships are people that were married, that have been married for a long time, where the husband and the wife had a fulfilled and meaningful relationship with their spouse. And, through psychology and study and counseling and so on and so forth, and understand the psyche between men and women, and they can get really deep into this, they were able to condense that information into usable and helpful stuff for couples, and regardless of it's a man or a woman, to really bring that to fruition. And so by saying, basically making a statement of all the books are crap is not true. There's a lot of good books that are very, very good. Let's see. Let's continue on.
And it's just been a disaster. The therapeutic industry has been a disaster for the human.
Seriously. So he ends up saying that the therapeutic community as a whole has been a disaster, and apparently there's no redeeming qualities whatsoever.
In particular.
But let's get that last little bit there. But to make such a generalized statement, that's kind of like saying all white people are bad. No, not all white people are bad. Let's take this to the extreme. Or is every single self-help book bad? No. Is every single marriage counseling, material and how you do that, is that bad? Absolutely not.
For women in particular. Because let me tell you something. The appropriate response, if you know someone personally who has this complaint about, I wanted to talk about a movie, he didn't want to talk about it. It's like, okay, get over it. He was a little rude, a little dismissive. So tell him that and move on with your dinner. You should be over it by the time the appetizers get there.
After being married 35 years, I totally disagree with this. The devil is in the details. And with him being slightly dismissive over this, she's sharing joy, something that he gave her, and she's expressing her joy and enjoying what he gave her, and he stomps on it. Get over it. That I find that very, very problematic. And like I said, this is the first time I've seen this, but after 35 years of marriage, I cannot agree with his assessment.
Okay, it's not a crisis. It's not. We don't have to sit around dissecting it.
The thing is, it's one instance in time where he stomped on her feelings, but obviously this has gone on to the point of where, we talked about is, and you're just supposed to take it. Interesting. And yeah, that's a bold general statement. That's what he makes. That just, again, this is what sticks up my nose about this, is that, it's just a movie. It's just this. it's like, let's bring this in the context of, let's say, no, well, it's just murder. It's just one murder. It's just one person killing another. It's not like Hitler, who killed millions and millions of people. Get over it. I know it's extreme what I'm doing, but it's just kind of to show the absurdity of this, of saying, well, this one instance of time, it is totally insignificant. It could be, but the thing is, in relationships, and people who are dysfunctional and don't know how to have a relationship with themselves or each other, this isn't just one time. And again, we already talked about how he made this assumption that it was just once, and it was slightly dismissive, and obviously it wasn't just once. And again, if you know anything, that again, he's been thinking about this for a long time, and if this is indeed the first time that he brought it up, it makes it even worse because he's just verbalizing it. So I just can't agree with this, because it's those little moments in time. I mean, it's kind of like saying, well, you touch the stove and you got burned. Well, that's just once. Get over it. Okay, yeah. But if you go to the stove and you touch it again, you get burned again, you're going to be reluctant to interact with the stove. So no wonder she pulls away, he pulls away, they grow apart in their relationship. What are the odds of that happening? And then the relationship goes to hell in a handbasket. I wonder why. They should have just gotten over it. Well, why didn't he get over it and change his position of saying, hey, I'm just going to be totally dismissive, and I'm just going to stomp on your joy and the things that bring you excitement and peace, the gift that I gave you, and I'm just going to stomp on your feelings. Why didn't she said, well, why don't you just get over it and not do that anymore? How come he's not bringing that side to light? Dude, get over it. Stop belittling your wife and what she's enjoying. Get over it. I mean, by appetizers, this should no longer be a deal. He should just stop doing it and love and support his wife. Henry ends up saying, wasn't Matt Walsh in the news for something about how he treated his wife himself? I could be totally wrong. I don't know. I know there was the guy. There was another guy that did videos, and he ended up treating his wife like crap. There's videos of it. It wasn't Matt Walsh, that's for sure. But aside from that, I don't know about that. But just his take on this is just very problematic.
We really don't. It's not about, let's look at the deeper significance of this. No, it's just a moment. He's annoyed by something, maybe. Maybe he's annoyed because they didn't have the food he wanted on the entree. Whatever.
That's not what happened. Now he's making things up. Matt's making shit up. Well, maybe he was something about the No. The issue is that she was excited about it. He brought the gift, and she was sharing her excitement of how she enjoyed and respected what he did by this romantic movie and dinner out, and he stomped on that. He's moving the goalposts, folks. He's moving the goalposts.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. So if she treated him in the same way that he treated her, so that wouldn't matter either. Just get over it. Really, Matt? Really?
Get over it is the answer, lady. Get over yourself and get over it and move on. Stop being a child. You're being a child is what you're being.
So if somebody continues to do this type of activity and continues to stomp on a spouse's heart, whether they're male or female, the man or the woman, whatever it is, just get over it is the answer. Just don't have any consideration for your spouse and the things that they enjoy or the things that make them happy. Just stop it. Stop it. That's absolutely insane. Why would you do that? Seriously, Matt? That's where you're going?
Crying because he didn't want to talk about a movie. What the hell is wrong with you?
It's not about the movie, Matt. You can't see the forest through the trees. You're focusing on the dot and you can't see the big picture. It's not about the movie. It's about her being stomped, she opening up, and he just, boom, shredding that, and then apologizing and a glimmer of hope, and then he smashes it again by saying, you're just annoying, when you're excited. Again, if the tables were turned on this, Matt would be singing an entirely different tune. I guarantee it. So this whole thing, this whole stance that he has, is a total disregard for relationships and how they work. And again, all you have to do is just flip the situation around, and yeah, he would be singing a different tune.
You child. So that is actually the appropriate response. It's the healthiest response. It's what people like this need to hear.
So she's a child for being hurt in her feelings and bringing it up in a non-emotional way, and not blowing up or, oh yeah, hitting on the husband or whatever. She takes time to process the hurt. She brings it up and says, that hurt me. Husband says, yeah, blah, and I apologize, and then stomps on her again. Let's just glance over that. Don't talk about that. He was just being slightly dismissive. Really? Again, if you get burned multiple times, you're going to have resentment. And no wonder the relationship is going to be strained, because if that continues, that's just going to drive you further apart. And for him to call her a child, for her bringing up and saying, hey, I felt bad about this. Well, again, put her shoes on the other foot. If the man brought it up and said, hey, what you did hurt me, would he be saying the same thing? But again, it's not about this one tiny incident. It's about the series of incidents over time that causes this resentment, and is probably a huge reason why a lot of marriages fail. Yeah.
They will never hear it from a therapist. They will never hear it from a therapist.
That is absolutely untrue. For somebody who's been in therapy for marriage, somebody who's been in therapy for PTSD, depression, and anxiety, this is an absolute statement, and he is absolutely wrong, because that hasn't been my experience. So even if just one instance of that not happening with therapists, that already disproves him. And the fact that I've seen multiple therapists, because I was pretty damn screwed up, just shows me how he is making an absolute statement and not taking. It's kind of like saying, oh, all black people are bad. All white people are bad. Everybody's a criminal. This and that. And you're stingy. And everybody, this race is that. You're making an absolute statement that is absolutely not true. And I am very surprised at this.
Instead, they'll say, let's sit and talk. Let's do 10 sessions about this.
10 sessions. Maybe people need 10 sessions.
Anyway.
Maybe people need more counseling. Because way back in the day, my grandparents' age, you would actually get, like we talked about before, you would get tips, and, the older generation would be the role models for the new generation coming up, and the boys teaching them how to be men, how to be respectful, how to treat their wives with love and respect, love them, lay down their lives, share in their joys and their frustrations and all of this stuff. It just seems it's like, now you're shitting on that. By saying that because our parents don't do that nowadays, or people aren't passed on this information, and the void is being filled with counselors whom he says all are bad, all counseling is bad, and that, 10 sessions, and it's like, well, what if it takes 10 sessions to get fixed? Wouldn't you want to invest 10 sessions to fix the problem? If you need 10, take 10. If you need 20, take 20. I can't tell you the number of sessions I've been in because of my depression, anxiety, and PTSD, and how that has really screwed with my head and messed up the relationships that I've had with people. And guess what? It's taken way more than 10. It's been a long journey, Matt. I hope that's triggering for you. But the fact is that some people need a lot of work. And I wish I was like Matt. Actually, I don't. But I wish I was like Matt, to be to the point of where I could just say, you know what, I see that, that's wrong. And boom, it's fixed, it's done, it's gone away. But that's not the real world. When you have grown up in such dysfunction or you don't know how to have a relationship or how to care or love for another person, you need to learn to do that, and it's not instantaneous. It wasn't instantaneous back in the day when the father taught the kid on how to be a man. It was years and years of training to prepare that young boy to be a respectful and honest man, hardworking, who would take care of his wife, love his wife and his children, and do what is needed and support them in every area of their life. No, it took more than 10 sessions, Matt. It took years to bring that child to the place of where they could do that. Same thing, conversely, with the wife. She would train the daughters on how to do that, and that would take years and years, their entire childhood. But no, 10 sessions is too long. Really? That's what we're going with?
Another detail that you should know about this truly awful woman is that she has apparently 4 children.
Okay, let's get down to here. His view seems to be developing a sense about your partner's feeling that would make men less masculine. Same goes for turning to therapy to help with your mental health. Yeah, I'm getting that feeling too. The fact, and I've seen some of his other stuff where I kind of get slight glimpses into that, where it's kind of a little bothersome before, but it's like, I didn't know the entire situation. His absolutes. When you make an absolute statement, that is a huge red flag. Yeah. There must be countless soldiers, law enforcement officers, firemen who rely on therapy to decompress and deal with their trauma. What does he say to them? Get over it. Get over it by the time the appetizers show up, apparently. I don't know. But the thing is, dealing with a relationship and a husband and wife, sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes you need therapy. And this begs the question, he says he's a Christian, and then there's times where he's talked about, you should, see your pastor about this and that. Well, how many pastors do counseling where it takes more than 10 sessions? A lot. I've been to multiple churches where the pastors offer counseling and pre-marriage counseling, and guess what? Some of those have been 6, 8 months, and a year long. Because people don't know how to have a relationship or the roles or setting goals or anything, or how to give of yourself and lay down your life. Maybe I'm laying down my life for the person I love in a way that, I don't get as excited about the movie as she does, but I love her and I love her seeing her happy and excited. I'm providing that for her, and that I'm a provider. You're supposed to provide for your family. Matter of fact, the Bible ends up saying that he who does not provide for his family is worse than an infidel. But when it comes to, getting counseling and training on that through a therapist these days, and making the claim that all therapists are scams and everything like that, that is a huge red flag. All right.
And 2 of them are teenagers or young adults, which means that her children are fully aware that her mother is disparaging their father on the internet.
That I will concede. That is kind of a rough thing, especially if you have children in the mix and you're doing that, because now you're putting the children in an awkward situation. So I totally agree with this. But the fact is that she has time. Here's the other fact that he's not mentioning, is that they have been married long enough to have teenagers. So let's just say the minimum is 13 years, and the husband is still stomping on the things that she finds enjoyable. Yeah, it's not the first time he's done this. I guarantee it. I would bet a paycheck on it. But apparently, just get over it. So if this pattern of behavior has been going on, and we give any type of credence to the wife, just a little bit, that during the 13 years that they've been married and had kids, that this has been a problem, and he's still learning. Wow. The husband is so behind the power curve on this after 13 years. This is unbelievable to me. And this shows, at least to me, I don't know, he doesn't seem really vested into this relationship. So, Mark comes up with a comment that says she should apologize to her husband and delete her social media. The damage she has done is undoable. I agree with that. There comes to a point, but we don't know the other side of the story of how much pain that he has continued to cause her through doing things like this. And even though it was just a movie, stomping on her excitement and joy and not letting her share that with him, even though, he might not be interested in that. You don't squash on somebody's joy and peace and excitement for the sake of, I just don't like this, so I shouldn't have to put up with this crap. And if this has been going on and he's acting like this now after at least 13 years of marriage, this shows that this has been a problem for quite some time. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's probably a ton more. And I know this for a fact by being counseled and then doing counseling in prison ministry and so on and so forth. So, but I agree that, if this was like the first year or so into marriage and she threw this out there, she should apologize because that's not something you do. But if this has been a continuous problem over their at least 13 years of marriage, because they have 2 teenage kids, so you could say 13, 14 years of marriage at least, and he's still operating in this immature and selfish way, but personally, I wouldn't air this out on social media. So I'm totally with Mark on this. I mean, I wouldn't do that. It's one thing to say and share experiences of what we learned as we grew up and through our married lives to help other people lessen the learning curve. They start their married life, kind of like me sharing the situations and me being wrong. And I need a lot of work. And thank God my wife has had patience and she loved me to the point to put up with my stupidity. But hopefully people can learn from that. But if she was vindictive to the point of that's why there's the only reason she was doing it, that's just wrong too. I mean, so I'm with you. I'm with you on that, Mark. Totally.
They can read, and certainly have read, all of the comments describing in detail why their father is an egotistical monster unworthy of love. And all of these comments are...
Okay, whoa. Egotistical and unworthy of love. Love's a two-way street. Isn't it?
foreseeable. Indeed, Jenny says that she knew it would go that way. And yet she posted the video anyway.
So she knew it was going to go that way. So maybe this is the point that after 13 years of getting her heart stomped on, that this is, she's at her wit's end and, bad choice of doing it online and social media. She could have just, left this alone. But even if, let's say there was no social media involved and she just left him because of this, it's a relationship issue. And if he hasn't grown in that 13 or so years and she has grown more mature and emotionally intelligent, is she going to keep putting up with the abuse? Eventually there's a time where, regardless of whether it's the husband or the wife, somebody's going to say enough is enough. You've been burned so many times and hurt and stomped on. So whether it's on social media or not, just looking at this from a relationship perspective, it happens.
And this is why I must desperately urge the women of America, and I know not all women do this, but if you're one of these women, I am urging you to stop complaining about your husbands on social media or in any other public forum. It is not just inappropriate. It is not just a case of oversharing, though it is both of those things. More than that, it is actually despicable.
To this, I would agree. But in the big picture and the context of him saying that this was just a one-time event, slightly dismissive, it was just over dinner. No, it wasn't. The situation was much more than that. And again, we get insight into this thing by learning about how, they're not newlyweds. This isn't just, past the honeymoon stage and now they learning how to be responsible adults and learning how to love each other. No, this is after at least 13 years. And while I totally agree with the thing of not airing this out on social media, I think he's downplaying the situation to the point. And if you don't get validation from your spouse, you're gonna look for it elsewhere. It is what it is. I mean, but I agree that I wouldn't do this.
You are a despicable person if you take the flaws and faults of someone close to you and parade them around in public.
But what about the person who stomps on your heart and does that multiple times? And even if you don't put it on social media, you've dismissed that as being slightly dismissive. It's just one little thing, get over it, when obviously it's not. Can that be despicable? Yeah.
You are a disgusting, narcissistic bully if you would offer up someone you love to the pitchfork mob as a way to win an argument. It is evil. It is vile. There are not words strong enough to convey how much I loathe this kind of thing.
And I agree. Generally. But the thing is, when he starts out with this, he makes assumptions that are wrong. He's already made absolute statement that all therapy is bad, 10 sessions, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of absolute statements that he makes that fly in the face of facts and reason. And again, the whole thing with counseling, maybe it takes more than 10 sessions, and he has a meltdown over that. For somebody who's had PTSD, depression, and anxiety from trauma, and then family trauma and all that stuff, sometimes that counseling takes decades. A little bit more than 10. But the fact that initially he just disregards what the husband does as being slightly dismissive and only one time, I feel he missed the mark.
I mean, think about it this way. It would be, and we would all agree with this actually, it would be utterly contemptible to treat a friend or acquaintance this way. You would be a heinous jerk if you publicly castigated a friend who you only text twice a year. I would think, and everyone would think, that you were an abhorrent, despicable, disloyal snake if you aired your dirty laundry about a friendly acquaintance or a distant cousin who you only see at weddings and funerals. Mm-hmm. But to do this to your spouse, the person you've pledged your undying loyalty to, the person you know and should love more deeply and intimately than anybody else on earth?
Like the husband is supposed to love the wife? Like Christ loved the church? Lay down his life for his wife? Have respect for her feelings? Support her? Let her experience joy and excitement, even though it might not be the thing that he's into? But because that type of love, is that what you're talking about, Matt? So aside from putting this on social media, let's just remove that. Again, not calling the husband to the carpet for what he did, because they're both wrong. She put it on social media. We don't know if she did it out of vindictive reasons or not, but let's just wipe that all aside. What his husband did was wrong, and apparently he's been doing it for quite some time. So that is wrong and despicable as well.
That's downright monstrous. And yet, the attitude a lot of people have is that doing it to your spouse is the only appropriate time. Yes, everyone would agree that doing that to a friend, a cousin, is like, why would you ever do that? You're a terrible person. And yet a lot of those same people think that it's totally fine to do that to your spouse.
Yep, we see this. I agree with this on social media. There's things that you wouldn't do to your friends that people do to their spouses. But again, I think it comes back to knowing relationships. But that doesn't negate the fact of what the husband did and just blowing it off as being slightly dismissive.
You have it exactly backwards. Well, really, you shouldn't be doing it to anybody. But to do it to your spouse is the worst.
Yeah.
I'm going to...
So, he throws in a lot of stuff in there that is absolutely true, that I agree with. But again, he's being real dismissive about what the husband ended up doing. So, yeah.
Hypotheticals. And needless to say, you are automatically the bad guy the moment you take your squabble to social media. That's
okay. So let's say that's true. But again, remove that. Why did this situation begin with? Is it because the husband was slightly dismissive, or because it's been a habitual problem of him stepping on his wife's heart and she just finally got fed up with it to the point of where it's like maybe she has gotten to the place of where she has been so hurt with this that this is the only outlet, albeit it's probably a bad outlet to put this onto social media. I 100% agree. But there is a lot more to the tip of this iceberg than what he's laying on, of just being one time. It was only over dinner, a normal dinner, whatever. Yeah, it's.
Why we're not going to dissect or discuss at all the actual story that Jenny shared.
We're not going to talk about that because apparently putting it out on social media negates any wrongdoing by the husband for the past 13 years. If that would stun me as myself, of not being at that point in a marriage after 13 years of acting like that husband did, I would be appalled in myself. After 13 years, you should have a clue. And obviously this husband doesn't. And it got to the point of where the wife had said, hey, let's work on this. And apparently the husband's not working on this because he does it for something that is so innocuous, insignificant, but still stomps on her feelings just for a movie. I don't know. Let's see. Henry ends up saying, I wouldn't want my partner to tell the world it's happening in our marriage. Absolutely true. But if the wife had no other community to turn to, the truth is we don't really know the situation of those people. Yeah, and it is. And so, that's why I say, aside from putting it on social media, and aside from Matt saying, well, it's on social media, so the husband gets a pass. We shouldn't even talk about why. And he just said it, basically. It's like, what? Seriously? Let's see if we can get him to say that again.
The moment you take your squabble to social media. That's why we're not going to dissect or discuss at all the actual story that Jenny shared.
Yeah, let's not talk about the thing where the husband stomped on his wife's heart, burned her, and something that he's done multiple times in the past, which puts a strain on the relationship. And if you do that one insignificant, painful thing over time and again and again and again and again, that is a lot of burn. It's a lot of hurt for the wife. And yeah, maybe she put it onto social media because she doesn't know how to respond otherwise because she's been too hurt by her husband. Maybe that's part of it. I mean, she's wrong, but he's wrong. But her wrong does not negate the two wrongs that he did, and obviously the pattern of behavior of wrong that he's been doing in their at least 13 years of marriage. But he's focusing on the dot. Don't worry about what the husband did and what he did wrong. The big important point is what she did by putting it on social media. So that negates anything else that he did. Seriously?
That doesn't matter. Again, the only answer to that is get the hell over it, you child. Stop whining and crying about it.
Wow.
Debt doesn't just show up one day. It builds little by little. Credit cards, car loans, medical bills, and suddenly you're juggling pain.
Yeah, okay, whatever. And then he does all that, and it's some stuff there, advertisement or whatever. But yeah, that is, see how problematic this is? And instead of dealing with the situation, Matt ends up coming to the point of where, well, she put it on social media, so forget what he ends up saying or what he did. So now, no accountability. No, he's not accountable. He gets a pass, get out of jail free card, just because she put it on social media. She was wrong too. Can they both be wrong? Absolutely. Should they both be called to the carpet? Absolutely. But the fact that where he is after at least 13 years of marriage, that he still is clueless and doesn't know what's going on and how to treat his wife, support his wife, and love his wife, lay down his life, even the thing, laying down your life for your wife. The Bible says laying down your life for a friend, that's love. Maybe laying down the things that, she enjoys this, I don't, but I'm going to let her enjoy that. Is that love? Yeah, that could be love. I don't like cleaning up, but I do it sometimes because I love my wife. I do things, give her back rubs, rub her feet because you know what, and I don't enjoy it, but I do it because I love her, and I like seeing her happy. And the whole thing of man, I wish I had more coffee. But the whole thing of Matt coming to the place and saying, "Hey, it doesn't matter what he did. It only matters about that she put it out onto social media." We're not disputing that. What I am disputing is you're dismissing and you're automatically saying that the husband gets a pass and the wife doesn't, and it's like he doesn't seem to understand the relationship and how that works, or what love is inside a relationship. And that there's times when, hopefully this isn't how he operates within his marriage. That would be horrible. And I'm not going to say, that he does or doesn't. I have no clue whatsoever. But just based off of this and saying what he has and not calling the husband to the carpet for the things he did, and after 13 years, it's not a first time. For somebody who's been through counseling, years, decades of counseling, for numerous things, growing up in a toxic family, dealing with childhood trauma, dealing with being in the military and the trauma they got in the military and PTSD and yada, yada, yada. Thank you, Uncle Sam, for the gift that keeps on giving. Going through those things and through the countless hours of therapy, he's missed the mark. And making the generalized statement that all therapy's bad and talk therapy's bad, you know what? You got to talk. Otherwise, how are you going to get that shit out? And the thing is, it's like, oh, talk therapy bad. Yeah, there's some talk therapy out there that is absolutely like crazy. But you know what? If it's worded in a way that makes a person open up to deal with the issues that they have so that they can work and fix themselves and get help with that and get counseling to make themselves a better person, to make themselves a better spouse, a better husband, better wife, and be a better person to everybody else around, maybe that's what it takes. Maybe it takes more than 10 sessions. Lord forbid. Apparently, Matt's in a world where you just, it's done and over with and it's fixed. Maybe he has attained this level of, self-actualization that he is the end-all be-all and he has the perfect relationship with everybody and that everybody, the whole thing that he gained and gleaned from everything is that he was born perfect and had the proper role models, never had dysfunction, never, met the perfect spouse because, he's not dysfunctional in any way, shape, or form and just get over it and we're done. You should just do that. Just stop it. Stop being dysfunctional. Stop operating in a life where you don't know how to love yourself or others and just stop it and just do what's right. And don't call under the carpet the husband who did obviously wrong. No, don't do that. Yeah. It's just, Henry. He believes it disqualifies whatever she brings forward the moment she put it out on social media. Yeah, exactly. That doesn't negate. It's kind of like saying if you went to court, it's just insane. So because of what she did, he gets a pass. So it's kind of like saying, well, she escalated the situation, so whatever he did doesn't matter. The years and everything that he's done, it doesn't really matter because she put it on social media. Granted, what she did was wrong. You don't do that. But it doesn't give him a pass. Let's see. If I could squint, I could see where he's coming from. It could start an arms race to be the first to bring your story to the internet and reap people's support. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And there's people that have done that to try to sway We've seen it with child support cases and whatever. Whatever family member gets the bad story out first, they use that as ammunition or in vengeance to get revenge or avenge, somebody for something and whatever. And you get all the support, and that can sway the minds of everybody else involved in the courts and police or whatever. There's people that do that. But the problem that I see, and that is going to be more and more. We've seen that already. But the fact that Matt can't separate himself from, the situation of, identifying and coming to the place of saying, it's not a big deal. He was only dismissive once. It's not a big deal. And really downplaying. And then the fact that he says that all the self-help books are good or bad, all therapists are bad and whatever, making those generalizations, which obviously shows that either he's perfect, kind of walking the same level as Jesus, no problems in his life. He's the perfect incarnate individual human who hasn't experienced trauma or problems or dysfunctions and doesn't realize that therapy can take a long time. And the claims that he makes, combined with the things of saying, just once and slightly dismissive, it wasn't a big deal, when actually it was two things, and slamming his spouse not once but twice, apologizing and ripping the rug out from under. I'm just surprised at how dismissive he is on this when they should both be called to the carpet. The husband should be called on the carpet after 13 years. I was going to concede because after, before watching this video with you all, of saying, maybe there's more to the backstory. Maybe she just is a horrible person and the husband is the woe is him. He's the victim here. Well, the fact is, I don't get that. What I get is that they're both dysfunctional. She was trying to work on it. The husband is in a place after 13 years of still stepping on his wife's heart. It's just like, I can't come to the conclusion that he has, and then dismissing all of the important things and saying, well, social media, she brought it out, so that just gives him a pass. It's just agreed. I said a lot of silly things wrapped in one reasonable observation about the social media thing. No, I totally agree with you. Yeah. She shouldn't have done that. Obviously, she should not have done that. There's a difference between sharing what you've learned during your relationship to help other people and to realize that, there is hope, there is counseling. There are counselors and mental health people that are out there that can be extremely helpful in relationships with just you as an individual, or marriage counseling, or so on and so forth, that just brings things to the table to help people be better people and be better couples. But to totally just, it's all crap, that just flies in the face of reason. When somebody makes an absolute statement like that, all therapists are bad, and are worthless, or whatever kind of the thing that he implied, that tells me that it's BS. And then when you get to the point of where you say, well, she put it on social media, so she's more wrong, and thus makes what he did wrong not wrong. We're not even going to, and he actually says that. That's mind-blowing to me. A real man would assess the situation and say, he did wrong, she did wrong, they both need to work on themselves in their relationship, otherwise they're going to drift away even further. And after 13 years, I would say, it probably doesn't look good if those things don't get fixed, and it's 13, 14, 15 years or whatever. It's probably not good, especially if the husband is operating in that same mode, and apparently it's been a problem multiple times through their marriage life. I don't hold high hopes for them, for the husband or the wife, because she's going to reciprocate in any way, and she made some bad choices by putting it on social media, but Matt, seriously, really, that's what we're going for? I don't know. That got up my nose today, apparently. Be careful who you listen to. Set goals. Books are okay. Counseling is okay. Now we're getting to the point of where he makes an absolute statement of saying therapy's bad. Oh, well, a real man doesn't go to therapy because all the therapists are wackos and talk therapy is crazy, and there's some wild stuff out there. which is far from the norm when it comes to counseling, and that is a proven fact. But just to make such a blanket statement of saying that the therapists are wackadoos, all of them, and that 10 sessions and anything more than that, we don't need 10 sessions, shows somebody who hasn't had so many problems in their life where they need to get fixed that it takes more than 10 sessions. So when somebody has to take 10 sessions or more, or years, or decades like I've done, I just find now somebody that is watching him might come to the point of saying, well, oh, I don't need to do any therapy, because I can blame everybody else, and if somebody does worse than what I do, I get a pass. So it doesn't matter what I did and how I treated other people around me. If they did worse than me, I mean, that's situational ethics. We can all point and say, well, Hitler killed millions of Jews, and so me murdering or raping or just doing one person or the bad things that I've done, I shouldn't be called to the carpet and be accountable for my actions because they far less than what Hitler did. Those are situational ethics. I thought we were about accountability. Apparently we're not. It's a sliding scale of morality now. Very, very problematic. We should just exercise more empathy in general. Absolutely. Whatever helps people to get healthy, why belittle that? Yeah, I know. That is the thing. I just, and the thing is, you're going to see people that are watching him, that are going to side with him, that are going to totally ignore what the husband did and basically justify his behavior. And if they do that in their own lives, it's like, well, I get a pass. It's not that big of a deal. Well, if you hurt the person you love, the person you hurt, it is a big deal, because if you switch the roles, the situation, and you get hurt, suddenly it's like, whoa, wait a second, that hurt. Shut up. Just deal with it. Get over it. That's not how that works. On the other side of the coin, I think you're reading way too much into it. Nobody knows all the details. That's true. Matt is only talking about this situation of posting her husband's faults in public. No, I don't think that's the case, because in the short and in the beginning of the video, he starts off by saying what? He automatically is biased and doesn't tell the truth. He says the husband was slightly dismissive after dinner or at dinner, without the context of it's a romantic thing. They went to a movie. The husband picked a movie for his wife, and she's really excited about it. She's relaying, hey, this is great. I didn't know anything about it. And the husband stomps on her heart, and Matt dismisses that as being, get over it. Even though she's hurt. The fact that she was mature enough to stop and not react emotionally and verbally beat him up like we've seen other videos and things like that shows that she has some modicum of maturity. Granted, it's, she shouldn't have put this stuff on social media. But aside from that, what the husband did is not something that a respectable married man would do after a minimum of 13 years of marriage to his spouse. I guarantee you that. That is not the way. And after 13 years, if you're still doing that to your spouse, it just shows the rigidity in his behavior and how he doesn't want to change. So it seems, are they both at fault? But yeah, the indication is that after, like I said, doing ministry and counseling and stuff like that, it just, he needs a lot to work on, and it doesn't seem to be doing it. Seems to be some kind of Marlboro Man ideal. Would a cowboy go to therapy? No, therefore it's not masculine and it's wrong and anything, it's leftist and whatever, because he's a big right-wing guy and I'm an independent. But it's, is masculine. I think that's the problem, is we went from one extreme way back when, like my grandparents' days, World War II, Korea and Vietnam. My grandfather was in World War II, Korean and Vietnam. Didn't go through counseling because that was considered bad and considered, it was made, made you look weak and so on. So they didn't go through therapy. They just drank and worked their ass off until they had a heart attack and died and didn't deal with those issues. So then it came about to where it slowly swung the other way. So we realized that with veterans who killed themselves off and unalive themselves at a rate of 22 soldiers and vets a year, now we've kind of gotten a clue and said, hey, well, maybe counseling is good. Maybe getting therapy is good to deal with the demons that you're dealing with and the dysfunctions that you grew up with. Let's address those things so that you can be a more successful and happy person. Maybe we should do that. And now we're coming around the other side and we're getting to where the point is that, nah, let's not get therapy. 10 sessions, hell, just get over it. As somebody who has PTSD and other problems, if you said that to me, that is so disrespectful, it's not even funny. His take, and again, this comes from ignorance. Now, granted, there are therapists or people who claim to be therapists that come out with some absolutely asinine stuff that only support and only hold accountable the husband and never hold the wife accountable and vice versa. You know, there's definitely biased counselors where the husband's always wrong, wife's always wrong, whatever it is, or based off some crazy wacko stuff. But when we're talking about real counseling, when we're talking about real health, mental health, there are tons of counselors and therapists and psychologists that are out there that will guide you, and it takes multiple sessions. And for him to totally dismiss that, and to the point of where it's like, you know, she's worse than him because she put it on social media so he gets a pass, is just, I'm disappointed. I am really, really disappointed in Matt Walsh. So, and having that, you know, well, it's not masculine. That's wrong. I think being a man is realizing that you have a problem because men are object and goal oriented. And if what's the deal with men? This is broke. We take time. We fix it. Boom, it's done. And that process might take a long time. You can't just immediately make a house in a day. You know, you just can't retile a bathroom in, like that. It's going to take time. There's going to be prep. There's going to be putting down the mastic. There's going to be putting up in this and that and setting, the tile and putting in the mastic and then putting sealer and then putting the toilet and redoing the whole house. There's so much, and you can't do those out of order. You have to do them and start with the foundation. And anybody that has gone through any amount of counseling realizes this. You can't just get over it. I wish we could. Maybe Matt has got some type of magic pill that he takes that allows people to just get over it and your problems are fixed like that. Matt, send me those pills. Send me those pills. Whatever it is. Maybe he got an injection, a revelation from God, and please give me that revelation, please. But the problem is he can't. And so we have to deal in reality, and people need counseling because they haven't had those role models, and or they've grown up in dysfunction themselves and they don't know how to act or how to love. Yeah. Henry says, this is a good one. Not rubbing crystals, therapy helps people who need real trauma. But in their eyes, it doesn't seem to fit the image of the modern man. And the thing is, people need help with real trauma. Yeah. And it does take time. It always takes time. It takes more time than what Matt is even. He's just cutting it off and saying, if you can't fix it right now, 10 sessions. As somebody who's been in counseling for years, there's a lot to go through, and you have to work on the foundational things first. It's like you raise a child back in the day from when they're a baby to a toddler, to a kid, to a child, to a young adult, into an adult. It takes what, 18 years? 18 years of molding, being the examples, saying this and teaching, and all of these things throughout a child's life to be a responsible man, adult, takes 18 years. And even then, You're not, a male is not fully developed until he hits like what, 26, 28, or 30 or something like that. So yeah, the learning's not over. But apparently 10 sessions is way too much to ask. Really, Matt, seriously, really? I'm going to be slightly dismissive on that. Okay, this is enough. It's Friday and it's late and I've talked too long. But yeah, I mean, so in closing, I can see the things that Matt Walsh I can agree with, which is like throwing your dirty laundry out for the world to see is wrong. But then again, 50, 100 years ago, people would do their dirty laundry at Bridge Club or bowling night or the men's club at the Elks Lodge or whatever. Women and their book clubs and the whole 9 yards. Quilting sessions, what do you think they did? And quilting said, well, my husband did this and this, this, this. This is something that's been going on since the advent of the human, however they got here. And then to say otherwise is that, well, let's take this back 100 years. Well, Aunt Jenny brought this before the quilting club, and because she did that and threw her husband under the bus, that means that whatever the husband did was wrong, he should get a pass. That doesn't fly either. Whether it was put out to 5 people or the world, yeah, you shouldn't have done that, but it doesn't negate the first problem. And he severely undermines that and kind of plays it off as, it's just dinner. No, it wasn't just dinner. Just slightly dismissive. No, it wasn't slightly dismissive of is something, hey, that's a pretty nice car. It's all right. Not my cup of tea. That's being slightly dismissive. Dismissing this to the point of where it's like, not a big deal. Which is vastly different than somebody who you took out with the purpose of giving them joy and excitement and showing them that you love them by taking and doing this activity. And then eventually you're like, you know what? I'm tired of this. Shut up. Stepping on her heart. And then it's like, yeah, it's just a movie. Get over it. How much disdain do you have to have for a person in a 13-year marriage that you do that to? That is insane. But the husband gets a pass. Yeah. Anyway. We're going to close this out. Henry ends up saying, thanks for the live stream. This showed that there's still plenty of ignorance out going around. We're trying to become better versions of ourselves. Exactly. And that's what it comes down to. And whether it should have been on social media or not, whatever it is, both of those people need to work on themselves. And as somebody who has such a huge, monumental following that Matt Walsh has, to totally dismiss counseling, to totally dismiss and ignore what the husband did wrong, and doesn't have the insight, either into counseling or mental health or stuff like that, of seeing that, I'm glad that he can just say, get over it, and he's done with it. But we're talking about him, the husband, stomping on the wife's feelings, and it's like, yeah, that's not a first time. I guarantee you that. And if it's got to the point of where her only recourse was, I got to throw this out on social media if they end up getting a divorce or whatever, maybe she was at wit's end and she's not acting responsibly either, but that doesn't negate what he's been doing wrong for 13 plus years. Just saying. And for somebody that is, again, somebody who has been married for that long that does that to their spouse, there's way more problems on the husband's side of the fence than the wife. I guarantee it. And she's probably got some skeletons in the closet as well. She's not the squeaky clean angel. Nobody is. But the fact that he is so determined to give him a pass and downplay the things that he did is just get over it. Appetizer, get over it. I feel sorry for him. Because when you, especially him as a Christian, and reading the Bible and knowing what it says and talking about love and loving your family and not providing for them and laying down your life as love and, respect your family and your wife and all those things that come into play. Doing that to your wife is not respecting her. It's not loving her. And so the husband put himself into a position of not loving his wife and not supporting her, not having her back. And then Matt's apparently okay with that. So he can sin against her. Is that the way Christ loved the church, was to dismiss the joy? Oh, could you imagine Jesus in the New Testament? Could you imagine this? Is that, somebody gets saved and comes to Jesus and he's like, they're all excited. Oh, Master, that's so great. Or was it not Lazarus, Zacchaeus. And that he had the come to Jesus meeting, and then it ends up he's like, oh, I paid back everybody I stole from, and then some, even more than what the Bible said. And then Jesus is like, dude, just get over it. Seriously? You're going to rant on about this? Just get over it. Stop with this. You're so annoying. Wonder. Now, wow. Trying to be more like Jesus, but we didn't see Jesus act like that. Just saying. But Jesus did call out the people that did wrong and the people that ignored their wrongdoing and their sin, to the point of where he laid it on. Hey, you sinned, you're missing the mark, blah, 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 and this. And then they keep doing it over and over and over, and they keep doing it wrong. And eventually got to the point of where those people, the religious leaders of the day, were so engaged in corruption that he ended up calling them a brood of vipers. But the Rome at the time was so oppressive to the Jewish and the Israelites, Jesus didn't say, well, Rome's worse than whatever you did, so you get a pass on your behavior. We don't see that ever. Okay. So anyway, that's enough. All I know is that the husband and the wife need to work together on their relationship, and there are things that each person needs to work on. We're not the same. Counseling is good. It makes you a better person. Like Henry said, be a better version of yourself, so that way you can be a better husband, better wife, better friend, whatever it is, better father, better mother. But if you have this preconceived idea that, we're going to dismiss this, so the husband doesn't need to work on his stuff, which he is obviously lacking, and we're just going to crucify the wife for the thing that she did wrong, you need to call both people into account for what they did. But the fact that he goes into mental health, well, what about the pastors in the Christian churches who do mental health counseling? Whoa, just get over. We don't need those. Just get over it, according to Matt Walsh. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, that's going to be it. Today is gym day. Today is Friday. It's 9:10 a.m. and I am vastly late to hit the gym because this has been a very interesting topic. And after 35 years of marriage, I think it's important that we address these things. Whether anybody takes it to heart or not, I have no idea. You throw it out there, and if somebody learns something from it, then good to go. I know I've gotten some good comments and things from the people that commented, like Henry, Mark, the other people and stuff like that. Good conversations. So anyway, we'll just leave it at that. And like Henry says, good night from my end of the world, and see you next time. All right. Hopefully so. Peace.